Buried beneath layers of time, ancient civilizations left traces, enigmatic structures, forgotten tools, and inscriptions whose meaning has puzzled scholars for centuries. Today, we journey into the heart of these discoveries, uncovering artifacts that challenge what we know about history, technology, and human ambition. From shadowed ruins to meticulously preserved relics, each fragment tells a story that demands to be heard. For the next 3 hours, prepare to witness the mysteries unearthed, explained, and brought to life. Step closer and let the past speak to you. On a windswept plateau in northeastern Algeria, not far from the Oris Mountains, a circular monument rises from the earth like a silent sentinel. Its stones glow amber beneath the North African sun. From a distance, Medracen appears almost geometric in its precision, an immense drum-shaped structure crowned with a stepped cone, as though time itself had been carved into layers of stone. Dating back to the 3rd century BCE, Medracen is widely believed to be a royal mausoleum of the ancient Numidian kingdom. The Numidians, a Berber people of North Africa, were known to history through their alliances and rivalries with Carthage and Rome. Classical sources describe powerful kings who commanded cavalry feared across the Mediterranean. Some historians associate Medracen with these early rulers, perhaps even with a predecessor of King Massinissa, the famed Numidian monarch who later allied with Rome. The structure itself is monumental. Nearly 60 meters in diameter and about 19 meters high, it is composed of carefully cut stone blocks arranged in concentric rings. 60 engaged columns line its outer wall, their forms echoing Greek architectural influence. Above them, a stepped conical roof ascends toward the sky. There are no inscriptions proclaiming its purpose, no carved names, only stone. Archaeological investigations suggest the tomb was once sealed, its entrance hidden and difficult to access. Inside, a narrow corridor leads to a burial chamber at the core. Though looted in antiquity, the design reveals a sophisticated understanding of engineering and symbolic space. Was the circular form meant to represent eternity? The heavens? Or was it simply an architectural tradition now lost to time? Mainstream scholarship places Medracen within a broader North African funerary tradition, influenced by both indigenous Berber practices and contact with the Hellenistic world. Its style suggests cultural exchange rather than isolation. Yet certain elements remain puzzling. Why such monumental scale for a kingdom that left relatively few written records? And why does its design echo, in subtle ways, other circular mausoleums across the Mediterranean? Some researchers have pointed to parallels with tumulus tombs in Asia Minor or even earlier megalithic traditions. Could Medracen represent a convergence of architectural ideas traveling ancient trade routes? Or might it preserve an older, regional symbolism that predates foreign contact altogether? There are also more speculative interpretations. A few fringe theorists have wondered whether the precision of its geometry reflects astronomical alignment, while no conclusive evidence confirms deliberate celestial orientation. The monument's elevated position offers a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. Did its builders intend it as a marker, a statement of dominion visible for miles, or perhaps as a spiritual axis linking earth and sky? The absence of inscriptions deepens the mystery. Unlike Egyptian pyramids or Roman mausoleums, Medracen offers no textual guidance. It stands mute, resistant to definitive interpretation. What rituals once unfolded here? What procession carried the deceased ruler into the chamber's darkness? And how did the living understand this towering circle of stone? Centuries of wind have smoothed its edges. Empires have risen and fallen around it. Carthaginian traders, Roman legions, Byzantine governors. Yet Medracen endures. Its builders remain largely anonymous, their language fragmentary in the archaeological record. The monument's survival feels almost deliberate, as though it were meant to outlast memory itself. Today, visitors walk its perimeter, tracing fingers along ancient masonry. The stones feel solid, grounded, unquestionably real, and yet the meaning behind them remains partially obscured. Was Medracen simply a royal tomb, a testament to Numidian power? Or does it represent something more, a cultural crossroads, a lost chapter in Mediterranean history, a symbol whose full story has yet to be uncovered? As the sun lowers over the Aura's horizon and shadows stretch across the circular facade, the monument seems to withdraw into itself once more. It does not explain, it does not confirm. It only stands, quiet, enduring, leaving us to wonder what truths may still lie hidden within its silent core. From the windswept plains of North Africa, where Medracen rises in quiet dignity, we journey across oceans and centuries to the highlands of the Andes, to a place where stone and water converge in patterns that defy simple explanation. Here, in the shadow of the Cordillera Blanca, lies Chavín de Huántar, a ceremonial complex that whispers of a civilization both advanced and enigmatic, a society whose architectural and spiritual imprint continues to captivate researchers and visitors alike. At first glance, Chavín de Huántar appears as a labyrinth of low stone platforms, terraces, and plazas, punctuated by a series of carefully carved monoliths. But a closer look reveals a more deliberate, almost otherworldly design. The temple itself is a maze of underground galleries, narrow channels, and hidden passages constructed with precisely cut granite and limestone blocks. Water, drawn from nearby rivers, flows through these channels with an intentional rhythm, producing a subtle, almost musical resonance. Walking through the galleries, one cannot help but notice the faint hum that echoes along the walls, a sound that seems engineered to stir something deep within the human psyche. Archaeologists date Chavín de Huántar to around 900 BCE, placing it among the earliest known ceremonial centers in the Andes. The Chavín culture is credited with pioneering artistic motifs, ritual practices, and religious iconography that influenced a broad region of what is now Peru. Carved stone heads, some half buried in the earth, depict jaguars, eagles, snakes, and anthropomorphic hybrids, their gaze fixed in ways that seem intentional and meaningful, designed to confront and perhaps transform those who enter the sacred space. Yet, despite decades of study, the exact nature of these rituals remains elusive. What ceremonies demanded such architectural complexity? What knowledge guided the creation of subterranean corridors that twist and turn with uncanny precision? Mainstream interpretations suggest that Chavín de Huántar served as a major pilgrimage site, where followers from distant valleys converged to partake in religious rites. Its plazas and platforms may have hosted communal gatherings, while the underground galleries facilitated private, perhaps even mystical, experiences. The discovery of complex stone carvings and the subtle acoustic effects within the tunnels has led researchers to propose that sound played a central role in ritual practice, amplifying chants, drums, or wind instruments to create an immersive sensory environment. But how was such precise acoustical engineering achieved without modern tools or written blueprints? Some scholars have drawn attention to alignments and patterns within the site that hint at astronomical or calendrical significance. Certain plazas and temple openings appear to correlate with solstices, equinoxes, or the movement of celestial bodies, suggesting an advanced understanding of the heavens. Could these alignments have guided ceremonial timing, or even encoded cosmological knowledge? Or do they reflect a symbolic language, one meant to communicate power and spiritual authority across generations? Beyond these accepted explanations, more speculative interpretations arise. A few researchers have suggested that Chavín de Huántar may have been designed to alter consciousness, to guide initiates into altered states through the interplay of sound, confined spaces, and visual stimuli. The carved stone faces, often positioned above hidden channels of rushing water, seem to emerge from the walls like apparitions when light and shadow shift. Might these visual effects have been deliberate, crafted to awe and disorient visitors, reinforcing the authority of priests or shamans? Yet, as with Medracen, many mysteries remain stubbornly intact. Despite extensive excavation, the full purpose of Chavín de Huántar is still not known. Its creators left no written record to explain their intentions. Its underground galleries preserve their acoustic secrets, waiting for the curious and patient to discover them anew. How did a culture, seemingly without a formal written language, conceive of such a complex, multi-sensory environment? And how did they transport and manipulate massive stones with such precision, shaping a sacred space that still resonates with power millennia later? Standing today amid the ruins, one is struck by a sense of humility. The stones feel alive with memory, the air thick with echoes of footsteps long vanished. Water still courses through the channels, producing faint vibrations that suggest rituals once practiced here were more than ceremonial, they were transformative. And yet, the exact nature of that transformation, the knowledge it conferred, and the hands that shaped it remain tantalizingly beyond reach. Chavín de Huántar endures not merely as an archaeological site, but as a question posed to all who encounter it. It invites reflection on human ingenuity, the depths of spiritual imagination, and the mysteries that persist when civilizations leave no written testimony behind. As we trace its corridors and observe the subtle interplay of stone, water, and sound, we are left to wonder, what truths were known here, and what knowledge has the passage of time kept hidden in the shadows of this Andean temple? From the highlands of the Andes, where Chavín de Huántar whispers secrets of sound, stone, and ritual, our journey now moves to the arid banks of the Nile's great southern reaches, to a place where ancient civilizations once thrived along the lifeline of the river. Here, in what is now northern Sudan, lies Kerma Deffufa, a monumental site whose massive mud brick structures have withstood millennia of desert winds, offering tantalizing glimpses into a civilization that flourished long before the rise of Egypt's pharaohs. At first sight, the Deffufa dominates the surrounding flatlands. Its colossal rectangular form rises in stark contrast to the low desert horizon, composed of carefully molded mud bricks stacked with astonishing precision. From the air, the structure's shadow stretches like a perfect geometric impression, hinting at a deliberate design whose purpose may have transcended the practical. The largest of these Defufas, often referred to as the Western Deffufa, towers roughly 18 meters high, and its inner walls enclose a labyrinth of chambers, staircases, and platforms. Sunlight dances across the weathered mud, illuminating the subtle curves and recesses that speak of careful planning and perhaps ceremonial intent. Kerma, as an archaeological culture, dates back to roughly 2500 BCE, making it contemporary with Egypt's Old Kingdom. Unlike the pharaohs to the north, the Kerma people left no monumental stone tombs, at least not in the way we often imagine. Instead, they constructed massive earthen platforms, atop which rituals and burials were performed. The Western Deffufa, for instance, appears to have functioned both as a sacred center and as a funerary monument, housing tombs for elite individuals beneath its earthen terraces. Excavations have revealed finely crafted ceramics, elaborate jewelry, and remains that suggest elaborate mortuary practices, yet many details remain enigmatic. Why such a massive investment in mud brick architecture in a desert environment? What symbolic or spiritual forces guided the construction of these imposing platforms? The Defufas are aligned along what seems to be an organized cityscape, with smaller mounds and residential structures radiating outward. Scholars suggest that this reflects a hierarchical society with a centralized religious or political authority. Yet, unlike Egypt, the Kerma culture did not inscribe detailed records of kings or divine decrees. The absence of written testimony forces researchers to rely on architectural clues, burial patterns, and material culture. Could the monumental scale of the Defufas have been meant to project authority or sanctity to the wider region, visible from afar across the flat desert? Or did they serve a more complex function, blending ceremony, astronomy, and perhaps even sound in ways we are only beginning to grasp? The interior of the western Deffufa is particularly puzzling. Staircases lead to multiple tiers, each opening into chambers whose original purposes are difficult to determine. Some rooms seem to have been carefully sealed, as though to preserve something precious, whether sacred objects, ritual space, or knowledge meant to endure for generations. The thickness of the mud brick walls and the precision of their construction imply more than casual labor. These were engineers, architects, and visionaries working with materials and techniques now largely lost. How did they plan such ambitious structures without tools or methods comparable to modern engineering? Some researchers have speculated that the Defufas were designed to interact with light and shadow in ways that complemented ceremonial activity. During the solstices, sunlight may have illuminated particular niches or surfaces, creating dramatic visual effects. Others point to acoustic possibilities, suggesting that the enclosed chambers could amplify sound, resonating chants or drums in ways that intensified ritual experiences. Though these theories remain speculative, they point toward a culture that may have understood its environment and human perception more subtly than we often assume. Yet mysteries deepen when we consider the larger context of Kerma society. The city itself, with its surrounding cemeteries, indicates a sophisticated social organization and long-distance trade. Artifacts suggest connections with Egypt, Nubia, and perhaps even regions farther afield. Yet the scale and ambition of the Defufas seem to transcend purely practical purposes. Were they purely religious monuments, symbols of political power, or repositories of knowledge encoded in mud brick, geometry, and spatial design? Could the placement and form of the Defufas encode information lost to time, perhaps celestial, symbolic, or spiritual in nature? Even the burials beneath these platforms raise questions. Skeletons show evidence of elaborate funerary treatment, and the inclusion of exotic goods implies a belief system rich in ritual symbolism. Yet, despite these discoveries, the meaning behind the spatial arrangements, the selection of tomb occupants, and the sheer scale of the mud brick construction eludes modern understanding. How did the Kerma architects coordinate labor, design, and ritual in a culture without a written engineering or architectural manual? And what knowledge, once integral to the spiritual and social life of this civilization, has been irretrievably lost? Walking among the ruins today, the desert wind carries whispers of a past both distant and immediate. The mud brick walls, sun-baked and scarred by time, still radiate a presence that is difficult to describe. The Deffufa feels alive with intention, as though it embodies not just the memory of a city, but a broader vision of existence, a dialogue between human ingenuity, the divine, and the natural world. One cannot help but feel that every brick, every platform, every hidden chamber holds a story we are only beginning to hear. Kerma Deffufa endures as a question, an invitation to contemplate the capabilities and beliefs of a civilization that achieved extraordinary feats without leaving conventional records. Its monumental geometry, its subterranean spaces, its resonant silence, all speak of design, intention, and ritual in ways that challenge our assumptions about early urban societies. And yet, for all the study and excavation, its full story remains hidden beneath layers of time, dust, and mystery. What other knowledge, what other wisdom might still be buried beneath those mud brick walls, waiting for eyes and ears attuned enough to perceive it? From the desert sands of Nubia, where Kerma Deffufa rises like a sun-baked testament to human ingenuity, our exploration now carries us across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean to a volcanic island where the rhythm of waves and the scent of salt air intertwine with the silent stones of an ancient city. Here lies Leluh, on the island of Qosray in Micronesia, a stone metropolis built centuries before European contact, whose walls and monuments still speak of an extraordinary civilization and whose methods remain largely mysterious to this day. Leluh emerges from the lush, tropical landscape with a quiet, imposing presence. Massive basalt stones, some weighing several tons, are arranged with astonishing precision into walls, platforms, and ceremonial structures. Unlike the scattered ruins common across many Pacific islands, Leluh presents a coherent urban plan. Streets are aligned with careful orientation, residential compounds cluster logically, and sacred precincts occupy central, elevated positions. From a distance, the city appears almost sculpted into the terrain, its contours echoing the undulating hills of Qosray while maintaining geometric regularity that is difficult to replicate even with modern tools. Archaeological studies date Leluh to around the 12th century CE, at the height of the Saudeleur dynasty's influence across Qosray. Unlike other Pacific settlements, Leluh was a fully stone-built city, a remarkable feat in a region where wood and coral were typically the materials of choice. Its construction demonstrates sophisticated knowledge of quarrying, transportation, and masonry. Massive stones were cut, shaped, and placed without mortar, forming walls that have endured centuries of tropical storms, seismic activity, and coastal erosion. How did the builders achieve such stability and alignment without iron tools or written engineering guides? And what inspired them to abandon lighter, more conventional materials in favor of heavy basalt? The layout of Leluh itself suggests deliberate planning beyond mere practicality. The central ceremonial precinct, surrounded by royal residences and elite compounds, conveys a hierarchy both social and spiritual. Some structures appear to have been used for ritual purposes, their platforms and altars aligned in ways that could correspond to astronomical phenomena or local spiritual beliefs. Sacred causeways connect temples to residential zones, creating a path that seems to guide both foot traffic and attention in precise ways. Scholars have speculated that these alignments reflect cosmological principles, but without contemporary records, the exact intention remains elusive. Were these pathways and sightlines designed for ritual procession, social control, or something more symbolic, encoded in stone for generations to interpret? Even the construction techniques invite wonder. Basalt, dense and difficult to shape, was quarried and transported across the island's challenging terrain. The stones fit together with a precision that produces remarkably stable walls, resistant to collapse even under centuries of environmental stress. Some researchers suggest the use of simple levers, ramps, and communal labor, but the elegance of the interlocking stones hints at an understanding of load distribution and geometry that feels advanced for a society with no written blueprint. Did the builders possess knowledge of structural engineering lost to time? And if so, how widely was it shared or guarded? Within the city, burial platforms and tombs add further intrigue. Elite members of society were interred in stone chambers that required careful engineering to construct and maintain. Artifacts recovered include finely crafted ornaments, tools, and evidence of trade with neighboring islands, suggesting Leluh was not only a political and ceremonial hub, but also a node in a wider network of exchange. Yet, much remains unknown about the rituals, the social hierarchies, and the daily life of the inhabitants. How did the city sustain itself? How were such massive construction projects coordinated? And what spiritual or political motivations drove the community to devote immense resources to stone over wood, a choice so unusual in the region? Speculative theories have also emerged to explain the city's sophistication. Some scholars have suggested that Leluh's builders may have incorporated knowledge passed down from earlier, now lost cultures in Micronesia, or even observed natural forces in a way that informed urban design and construction. Others point to the precise arrangement of structures in relation to the coastline and surrounding terrain, hinting at a possible understanding of tidal patterns, seasonal winds, or celestial cycles. While concrete evidence remains elusive, these hypotheses suggest a society that blended observation, ritual, and communal skill in ways that continue to challenge modern assumptions about pre-contact Pacific civilizations. Today, the remnants of Leluh stand both as a city and as a puzzle. Basalt walls trace the contours of streets that have long been silent. Platforms that once held ceremonial altars remain, weathered yet dignified, hinting at rituals, authority, and beliefs that modern eyes can only guess at. The city's resilience through tropical storms and centuries of neglect underscores not only the builder's craftsmanship, but also the intentionality behind every choice of stone and alignment. Each wall, each platform, each carefully placed stone seems to whisper, silently asking us to consider the knowledge, skill, and vision required to build a metropolis of this scale with such enduring precision. As we walk through the ruins, imagining the city alive with the voices, movements, and rituals of its people, one is left with questions that resist definitive answers. How did Leluh's builders conceive of such a sprawling, coherent urban plan without formal architectural tools or written language? What traditions, beliefs, or hidden knowledge guided their hands? And perhaps most tantalizing of all, what has been lost to time? What wisdom, what cultural or technological insight remains buried beneath the soil and vegetation of Khosreh, waiting for discovery? Leluh endures not merely as an archaeological site, but as a testament to human ingenuity and imagination. Its walls, streets, and ceremonial spaces challenge our understanding of what is possible, inviting reflection on the capacity of societies to manipulate their environment in ways that endure long beyond memory. And yet the city also preserves its mysteries, leaving us to wonder, how much more remains hidden, and how might the silent stones of Leluh continue to reshape our understanding of the past? From the basalt walls and streets of Leluh, where human ingenuity and stone converge into a city that defies replication, our journey now takes us across continents and climates, from the tropical Pacific to the lush forests of South America. Deep in the Brazilian state of Pará, along the cliffs of the Amazon River basin, lie the Monte Alegre rock shelters, cavities in limestone cliffs that preserve some of the oldest and most enigmatic examples of human expression in the Americas. Here, within these shadows and overhangs, the stories of a distant past have been etched, painted, and left behind, resisting time and interpretation alike. The Monte Alegre shelters are immediately striking in their natural formation. Jagged limestone cliffs rise sharply from the surrounding forest, their surfaces pocked with fissures, alcoves, and overhangs that create an intricate network of shelters. Sunlight filters through the canopy, casting dappled patterns across walls painted with vivid reds, blacks, and yellows. At first glance, the images might appear simple: human figures, animals, geometric shapes. But closer inspection reveals astonishing complexity, a symbolic language of form, proportion, and composition that seems to convey stories, beliefs, or instructions, frozen in pigment for millennia. Archaeologists have dated some of the rock art in Monte Alegre to at least 13,000 years ago, placing it among the earliest known artistic expressions in the Americas. The paintings depict a wide variety of subjects: humans engaged in hunting, ritual scenes, and an array of fauna, some now extinct, others stylized in ways that challenge identification. There are also abstract forms, lines, dots, concentric circles, whose meaning remains open to interpretation. How did these early artists choose which subjects to depict, and what significance did these images hold for the communities that created them? The shelters themselves are more than mere canvases. Their architecture and positioning suggest intentionality. Many paintings occupy high, difficult-to-reach surfaces, requiring ladders, scaffolding, or ingenuity to create. Some shelters feature natural acoustics that amplify sound within the cavernous spaces. Was this intentional, to enhance ritual chanting or communal gatherings? Could the interplay of sound and image have created a sensory experience designed to inspire awe, teach, or even transmit knowledge to initiates? Researchers have noted that the Monte Alegre rock art shares stylistic features with other South American sites, suggesting cultural continuity and the transmission of symbolic traditions over vast distances. Yet the site also contains unique elements, images whose forms and execution are unlike any other in the region, and depictions of phenomena that remain difficult to explain with certainty. Some figures appear to represent celestial events or abstract patterns that might correspond to astronomical cycles. Were these early peoples mapping the heavens on stone, preserving knowledge that only their culture fully understood? Or were these purely spiritual representations, encoded in ways that remain opaque to us today? The natural environment of Monte Alegre further deepens the mystery. The cliffs are composed of limestone that is soft enough to carve but durable enough to preserve pigments over thousands of years. Watercourses and erosion patterns suggest that some shelters were intentionally chosen for their permanence and protection from seasonal flooding. Could these artists have understood, without modern hydrology, which surfaces would preserve their work for millennia? And if so, what observational skills, trial and error, or cultural knowledge allowed them to select the perfect locations? Beyond the visual elements, the Monte Alegre shelters also preserve archaeological evidence of habitation. Stone tools, hearths, and discarded animal remains testify to sustained human presence. But here, as elsewhere in this series of enigmatic sites, questions outnumber answers. How did these early communities sustain themselves in a tropical forest environment, balancing daily survival with artistic expression? Did the shelters function as ceremonial hubs, educational centers, or purely residential spaces that became sacred over time? And what social structures or spiritual beliefs motivated the extraordinary effort required to create art in challenging, elevated positions? Speculative interpretations have emerged alongside mainstream analyses. Some researchers suggest that the geometric motifs may encode information about territory, seasonal cycles, or resource management. Others consider that the shelter's acoustics, combined with visual stimuli, could have played a role in altered states of consciousness, meditation, or initiation rites. Though evidence remains circumstantial, these ideas underscore the possibility that Monte Alegre was more than an artistic endeavor. It may have been a carefully designed environment that combined perception, ritual, and memory in ways we are only beginning to imagine. Even after decades of study, many aspects of Monte Alegre remain unresolved. The choice of pigments, the precise methods of application, and the reasoning behind subject selection continue to challenge archaeologists. Some images depict animals or humans in forms that suggest symbolic or mythological significance now lost to time. How much knowledge has vanished with the centuries, and how much is encoded in ways we have yet to decode? Each fissure, each pigment layer, seems to hold a story that resists full translation. Standing at the base of the cliffs today, with the rainforest humming around you and sunlight striking the painted walls at just the right angle, the scale of human ingenuity is humbling. The Monte Alegre rock shelters remind us that the impulse to record, to communicate, and to create is timeless. Each brushstroke, each carved line reflects a consciousness attuned to environment, community, and perhaps even the cosmos. And yet, the full meaning of these images, the rituals, the knowledge, the experiences they encoded, remains hidden, leaving us to wonder what truths, what cultural or spiritual insights might still be concealed within these rock faces, awaiting discovery by those patient enough to listen to the silence of stone. From the sun-dappled cliffs and painted walls of Monte Alegre, where early humans left enduring traces of thought, ritual, and artistry, our journey now carries us across oceans and hemispheres once more to the rugged, windswept Isles of Scotland. Here, on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides, stands Dun Carloway, a broch whose circular stone walls rise from the moorland like a fortress both imposing and enigmatic, a testament to engineering skill and societal organization in a time shrouded by history. Dun Carloway is immediately striking in its solidity. From the exterior, the broch appears as a perfect cylinder of dry stone construction, walls soaring nearly 9 meters high in places, with a thickness exceeding 4 meters. The stones, carefully dressed and placed without mortar, interlock with remarkable precision. The interior opens into a circular chamber, surrounded by a series of intramural galleries and staircases that spiral upward within the wall's thickness. From above, the broch's concentric design reflects a mastery of geometry and spatial awareness, a form both functional and symbolic, standing resilient against wind, rain, and centuries of human activity. Scholars date Dun Carloway to around 100 BCE to 100 CE, placing it within the Iron Age communities of northern Scotland. Brochs are unique to this region, yet their purpose remains a matter of debate. Some suggest they functioned as defensive structures, a refuge against raiders and rivals. Others propose they served as status symbols for powerful families, demonstrating wealth, influence, and mastery over local resources. Yet the sheer scale of Dun Carloway, along with the precision of its construction, hints at knowledge and skill that are difficult to reconcile with the tools available at the time. How did these builders quarry, transport, and manipulate such massive stones with such accuracy? How did they coordinate labor and design without written plans or advanced surveying instruments? The interior galleries of Dun Carloway are particularly fascinating. Narrow passageways lead to hidden chambers within the wall, creating a space that is both defensive and enigmatic. Small openings, carefully placed, allow light and air while providing vantage points over the surrounding landscape. Some chambers seem almost ceremonial, positioned in ways that suggest deliberate planning beyond mere utility. Were these spaces designed for storage, defense, or ritual activity? Or did they serve multiple purposes, blending the practical with the symbolic in ways now lost to memory? Recent archaeological investigations reveal evidence of domestic life within the broch. Hearths, pottery shards, and tools suggest sustained occupation. Yet these findings raise further questions. How could a single structure accommodate both everyday life and potentially defensive functions without compromising either? And if brochs like Dun Carloway were built primarily for status and display, what cultural or spiritual messages were they intended to convey to neighboring communities? Could the broch itself have been a symbol of cosmic order, its circular form reflecting broader beliefs about the universe and society? The exterior walls also invite speculation. Their dry stone construction has endured millennia of harsh weather, seismic tremors, and human interference. The stability of the broch relies on subtle interlocking, careful placement, and an understanding of weight distribution that modern engineers study with interest. How was this knowledge acquired, and how widely was it shared among Iron Age builders in northern Scotland? Could it have been passed down through apprenticeship, oral tradition, or practical experimentation? And if so, what has been lost along the way, leaving us to marvel at structures that seem impossible to replicate even today. Some researchers have noted the strategic placement of Dun Carloway atop a gentle rise, overlooking fertile land and access routes across the moors. From this vantage, one could observe movements across the landscape, control trade paths, or signal to neighboring settlements. Yet the broch's construction is labor-intensive beyond practical necessity. Was its purpose solely defensive, or did it serve as a ceremonial and social center, a focal point of power and communal identity? Some fringe theories even suggest that broches were designed with astronomical or calendrical significance, their circular walls echoing cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. While these ideas remain speculative, they point to a society deeply attuned to both its environment and the cosmos. Walking among the ruins of Dun Carloway today, one senses both solidity and mystery. The stones radiate the presence of human hands, yet the intentions behind every gallery, chamber, and spiral staircase remain partially hidden. What stories unfolded within these walls? What decisions shaped their construction? And what knowledge guided each stone's placement? The broch endures as a testament to a people who combined ingenuity, labor, and vision in ways that continue to challenge our assumptions about Iron Age societies. The broch's endurance is remarkable. Centuries of wind, rain, and occasional human interference have not toppled its walls. Its form, circular and complete, speaks of intention, of planning that transcends mere survival. And yet, despite detailed studies and excavation, the full meaning of Dun Carloway remains unresolved. Its precise purpose, whether defensive, ceremonial, domestic, or symbolic, resists definitive answers. Each stone seems to ask questions we have yet to answer. How did a society with no written language, limited tools, and challenging terrain achieve such architectural mastery? What cultural, spiritual, or social imperatives drove its creation? Standing in the interior chamber, tracing the spiral staircase with one's hand, it is impossible not to feel a connection across time. The broch is more than a ruin. It is a dialogue between past and present, a challenge to modern understanding. Its circular walls, its hidden galleries, its careful integration with the landscape, all speak of human ingenuity, patience, and vision. And yet, the mystery remains. How much of its knowledge, its social structure, its symbolic meaning, has been lost to time? What insights might still be hidden within its stone, waiting for those who seek to understand? Dun Carloway, like the sites we have visited before it, endures as a monument to possibility, a silent witness to skill, intention, and imagination that the modern mind struggles to fully comprehend. And as we continue to trace the mysteries of the past, we are left to wonder, what other secrets lie within these walls, and how might they reshape our understanding of human potential when we confront the impossible feats of those who came before? From the wind-swept landscapes of Scotland, where Dun Carloway rises in a perfect circle of stone, our journey now turns southward along the spine of the Andes into mist-shrouded valleys and dense cloud forests. Here, hidden among steep slopes and rushing rivers, lies the Vilcabamba stone complex, a sprawling collection of terraces, walls, and precisely carved stones that whispers of a lost chapter in Andean history. This is a place where nature and human ambition meet in subtle, deliberate ways, and where every boulder seems placed with intent, yet its purpose continues to elude us. Vilcabamba is immediately striking to the eye. Massive stones, some weighing multiple tons, are stacked and fitted with extraordinary precision into terraces that cling to the mountainsides. The walls curve and incline, following the contours of the land, while plazas and platforms suggest communal or ceremonial activity. From certain angles, the stones interlock so perfectly that even a knife blade cannot fit between them. The sheer size and precision of some blocks, raise questions that have persisted for decades. How did the builders quarry, transport, and manipulate stones of such weight without modern machinery? And why did they choose such challenging terrain for construction rather than the more accessible plains below? Archaeologists attribute Vilcabamba primarily to the late Inca period, particularly as the last stronghold of the Inca resistance following the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. The area served as a remote refuge for rulers and warriors, allowing the continuation of cultural, religious, and political practices even under siege. Yet, even within this historical context, the technical mastery exhibited at Vilcabamba goes beyond what might be expected of a wartime refuge. The precision of stone cutting and alignment suggests knowledge and skill honed over generations, carefully preserved despite the pressures of conflict. Could this be evidence of an older tradition, inherited from previous civilizations in the region, now partially forgotten and surviving in secrecy? The layout of the complex is enigmatic. Terraces are aligned in ways that seem to maximize stability on steep slopes, yet some alignments appear symbolic, perhaps echoing celestial events or geomantic principles. Certain walls curve subtly, as if to mirror mountain contours or channel sound in ways not yet fully understood. Could these design choices serve a practical purpose alone, or were they meant to encode knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, or otherwise, within the very structure of the settlement? Within the complex are a series of plazas, staircases, and platforms that imply ritual or communal gatherings. Some stones bear grooves or indentations whose function remains unclear. Were they part of ceremonial altars, astronomical instruments, or something more abstract? Researchers have noted that some of these carvings align with sunrise or sunset on significant dates, suggesting a sophisticated awareness of solar patterns. Yet, without contemporary written records, the interpretations remain speculative. Did these alignments guide agricultural cycles, ritual observances, or social events? Or were they encoded for a spiritual purpose, accessible only to those initiated into specific knowledge? The natural environment of Vilcabamba adds to its mystery. Surrounded by steep cliffs and dense jungle, the site is often shrouded in mist, creating an ethereal atmosphere that seems intentional in its concealment. Was the location chosen for defensive reasons alone, or also for its spiritual resonance? The mountains themselves could have been considered sacred, their peaks and valleys woven into the cosmology of the people who lived here. And yet, despite its seclusion, the precision with which stones are shaped and fitted indicates a level of planning and coordination that would have required advanced surveying techniques and communal effort. How was this achieved without the tools we rely on today? Some researchers have speculated that Vilcabamba may preserve elements of older Andean traditions, integrating knowledge from civilizations predating the Inca. The construction techniques, particularly the fitting of irregular stones into perfectly interlocking walls, echo methods seen at sites such as Sacsayhuaman or Machu Picchu. Yet the setting and scale of Vilcabamba are unique. Could this indicate an ongoing lineage of engineering and ritual knowledge, transmitted orally and experientially over centuries? And if so, what aspects of that knowledge were lost as the Inca fled and the Spanish conquest reshaped the region? Even everyday life at Vilcabamba raises questions. Terraces suggest sophisticated agricultural practices adapted to steep terrain, while proximity to watercourses indicates careful resource management. Yet, the combination of practical, ceremonial, and defensive features suggests a society deeply aware of both natural forces and social needs. How did the inhabitants balance survival, spiritual practice, and architectural ambition in such a challenging environment? Were the terraces and walls purely functional, or did they carry symbolic meaning embedded in their orientation, proportion, and placement? Walking among the ruins today, one is struck by the subtle power of the site. Stones worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain still fit together as if carved yesterday, their mass and precision conveying a presence that transcends time. The terraces, staircases, and plazas invite both exploration and contemplation, and the mist drifting across the slopes adds a timeless quality, as though the site has resisted both conquest and modern understanding. Every stone seems to pose a question. How did this society achieve such precision in the remote mountains? What knowledge guided their hands, and what wisdom has been lost to the centuries? Vilcabamba endures as both a historical site and a mystery. Its terraces, walls, and interlocking stones testify to extraordinary skill, yet their full purpose and meaning remain elusive. The complex challenges modern assumptions about engineering, ritual, and urban planning in the Andes, leaving room for speculation without easy resolution. And as the mist rises over the mountains, obscuring the terraces in shifting shadows, one is left to wonder, what secrets of culture, spirituality, and knowledge still lie hidden within the stones of Vilcabamba, waiting for those patient enough to uncover them? From the mist-laden valleys of Vilcabamba, where terraces cling to mountainsides and stones speak of a lost civilization's ingenuity, our journey now moves along the Andean highlands, descending toward the sacred valley near Cusco, Peru. Here lies Qenqo, a carved rock complex that seems to emerge organically from the hillside, yet bears the unmistakable mark of human hands, its chambers, channels, and stone platforms presenting puzzles that have baffled scholars for centuries. Qenqo is more than a ruin. It is a testament to the Inca's mastery of stone and space, and a lingering enigma that whispers of rituals, beliefs, and knowledge lost to time. Approaching Qenqo, the first impression is of a natural outcrop, sculpted into a labyrinthine network of tunnels, altars, and amphitheater-like chambers. The limestone bedrock has been hollowed, carved, and polished with remarkable precision, creating spaces that are both functional and symbolic. At the center lies a prominent carved channel, shaped like a winding serpentine groove, leading from a carved basin to a lower chamber. Water, when present, flows through this channel in ways that may have amplified sound or guided liquid in ceremonial practice. Walking these chambers, one senses an intentional orchestration of movement, acoustics, and sight, an environment designed to engage both body and spirit. Archaeologists date Qenqo primarily to the late Inca period, around the 15th century CE, although the site may incorporate older traditions. Its proximity to Cusco, the heart of Inca power, and to other ceremonial centers such as Sacsayhuaman and Tambomachay, indicates its potential role in spiritual and state rituals. Yet, despite centuries of research, the precise purpose of Qenqo remains unresolved. Some scholars argue it was a mortuary site, pointing to carved niches and channels that could have accommodated blood or water during ritual sacrifices. Others emphasize its theatrical qualities, the amphitheater-like spaces, the acoustic amplification, and the visual focus on carved altars, suggesting ceremonial performance and communal observation. Could it have been both, blending funerary rites with public ritual, or did it serve a purpose we have yet to comprehend? The craftsmanship of Qenqo is immediately evident. The rock has been carved with tools that leave faint traces, yet the precision achieved, especially in shaping the main chamber and channels, is astonishing. Some channels are rounded to exact dimensions, seemingly optimized to carry liquid smoothly. The central amphitheater has walls that resonate sound, creating echoes that amplify even a whisper. How did Inca artisans, without modern surveying or engineering equipment, conceive of such precise forms? Was this knowledge empirical, passed down through generations, or guided by symbolic and spiritual principles that we no longer understand? Beyond the technical mastery, Qenqo's design raises questions about symbolism and cosmology. The serpentine channel evokes images of the Andean deity Amaru, the mythological serpent associated with the underworld, water, and transformation. The positioning of altars and niches within chambers may correspond to celestial events, though no consensus exists. Were these spaces intended as portals between the physical and spiritual worlds, facilitating communication with ancestors or gods? Or were they primarily theatrical, designed to guide participants through a structured sensory experience, with sight, sound, and touch all engaged in deliberate choreography? The site also reflects the interplay of power and spirituality in Inca society. Located strategically above the sacred valley, Qenqo overlooks the surrounding landscape, integrating natural contours with carved platforms that could accommodate observation or ceremony. The Inca were adept at blending architecture with topography, and Qenqo is no exception. Terraces, stairways, and channels appear to follow natural lines, yet each curve, niche, and chamber carries intentionality. Was the location chosen solely for visibility and prominence? Or did the Inca perceive sacred energy in this hillside, guiding their carvings and rituals? Speculative theories abound, in part because Qenqo resists straightforward categorization. Some suggest the site functioned as a laboratory of sorts for ritual experimentation, where priests tested methods of sensory manipulation, acoustics, or sacrificial practice. Others propose astronomical functions, noting alignments with solstices or lunar cycles. Even the carved channels have inspired hypotheses of symbolic storytelling, representing serpents, rivers, or pathways between life and death. While evidence for these interpretations remains inconclusive, they emphasize the depth of intentionality behind every carved groove and polished surface. Walking through Qenqo today, the air is thick with history and mystery. The carved chambers, with their interplay of light, shadow, and echo, evoke a sense of presence. Rituals performed, voices raised, water flowing, yet the details remain obscured. Some niches are empty, while others hold traces of pigment or wear, silent witnesses to centuries of human interaction. Every stone seems to pose a question. What knowledge guided its carving? What ceremonies once unfolded here? And how did the builders conceptualize such a space in a culture without written records as we understand them? The more one explores Qenqo, the more it becomes clear that the site was designed to be experienced holistically. Movement through the chambers, observation from platforms, interaction with carved basins and channels, all suggest a deliberate orchestration of perception. Yet, for all the study and excavation, the exact meanings remain elusive. Did Qenqo's builders intend to communicate knowledge that only the initiated could fully comprehend? Or does its design hold universal lessons about human ingenuity and ritual expression? Qenqo stands as both a monument and a mystery, a place where geology and human intention converge in ways that defy easy explanation. Its carvings, channels, and chambers challenge modern understanding of precision, ritual, and spatial design. And as the light shifts across its walls, revealing textures polished by centuries of rain and wind, one is left to wonder. What truths, what ceremonies, what knowledge may remain hidden within Qenqo's carved stones, waiting for those patient enough to uncover the echoes of the past? From the carved chambers and serpentine channels of Qenqo, where stone speaks of ritual, sound, and sacred geometry, our journey now moves across continents and millennia, from the misty Andes to the fertile plains of eastern Anatolia. Here, near the modern city of Malatya in Turkey, rise the Arslantepe Mounds, a series of ancient tell formations that conceal layers of human occupation stretching back over 7,000 years. Beneath the shifting soil and scattered ruins lies a story of early urbanization, monumental construction and symbolic practice, an archaeological enigma whose complexity challenges both imagination and replication. Approaching Arslantepe, the mounds appear as gentle rises across the plain, unassuming at first, yet when excavated reveal a densely layered record of human activity. The site contains monumental mud brick structures, fortified walls, and carefully arranged platforms that indicate a level of social and technical sophistication unexpected for a society of the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE. What strikes the observer most is the scale and organization of these early constructions. Massive foundations capable of supporting multi-story buildings, internal partitions suggesting complex administrative or ceremonial spaces, and wide courtyards that would have accommodated gatherings far larger than the surrounding population might imply. How did these early builders conceive of such spaces, and what knowledge guided the placement and proportion of every wall and corridor? Arslantepe's significance lies not only in its monumental architecture, but also in the artifacts uncovered within its layers. Elaborate ivory and metal objects, intricately carved seals, and sophisticated tools indicate a culture of artisanship and trade. Excavations have revealed traces of early administrative systems, perhaps among the first proto-bureaucracies in human history. Seal impressions and storage facilities suggest control over goods, people, and resources in ways that anticipate later urban civilizations. Yet, even with these tangible clues, many questions remain. How did a society without widespread literacy coordinate labor, construction, and ritual? What symbolic or practical knowledge guided their monumental planning? The site's architecture itself offers clues and mysteries. Mud brick walls rise in orderly courses, some enclosing what appear to be temples or elite residences. Defensive walls encircle the settlement, yet within these enclosures are platforms and altars whose purpose is less clear. Some of these structures exhibit precise alignment, subtle angles, and proportions that seem too exact to be purely functional. Could these architectural choices reflect symbolic, astronomical, or ritualistic principles now lost to time? Were they designed to create a specific experience for inhabitants and visitors, guiding sightlines, movement, or perception in ways we cannot fully reconstruct? One of the most intriguing aspects of Arslantepe is evidence for early ritual practice integrated into the settlement's architecture. Carved reliefs, ceremonial altars, and spaces associated with symbolic objects suggest a culture deeply attuned to spiritual and social order. Among these finds are depictions of lions, animals, and abstract symbols that may have communicated power, cosmology, or mythological concepts to those who understood their meaning. How were these symbols taught and transmitted? Did they convey religious doctrine, social hierarchy, or perhaps a form of encoded knowledge meant only for the initiated? Speculative interpretations arise when considering the scale and technical skill evident at Arslantepe. Some researchers suggest that the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of engineering principles, including load-bearing structures and mud brick curing techniques, allowing them to construct durable multi-story buildings with limited tools. Others note the apparent alignment of certain ceremonial spaces with celestial events, hinting at early astronomical knowledge. Could Arslantepe have been designed not only as a settlement, but as a stage for ritual observance, where movement through the site mirrored cycles of the sun, moon, or stars? The mounds themselves offer another layer of mystery. Successive generations built atop earlier foundations, creating stratified layers that preserve millennia of human activity. Each layer tells a story of continuity and change, of adaptation, conquest, and innovation. Yet, despite the wealth of material evidence, the intentions behind many constructions remain opaque. Why were certain platforms chosen for ritual activity, Why were walls reinforced in some areas and left open in others? And how much knowledge about social organization, religious belief, or technological expertise has been lost between the layers of earth? Walking among the excavated terraces and foundations today, one senses both the fragility and permanence of human achievement. The mud brick walls, though weathered, reveal the labor and planning invested by early architects and builders. Courtyards and platforms invite contemplation of how people moved, interacted, and observed ceremonies thousands of years ago. There is a rhythm to the site, a deliberate orchestration of space and experience that seems to anticipate the urban planning of later civilizations. And yet, the precise methods, intentions, and meanings behind this orchestration remain tantalizingly out of reach. Arslantepe challenges modern assumptions about the origins of urban life. Its monumental construction, complex social organization, and symbolic expression suggest a society capable of feats difficult to replicate even today, without modern machinery, written plans, or advanced surveying instruments. It raises fundamental questions about human ingenuity, knowledge transmission, and the ways in which early societies balanced practical necessity with spiritual, ceremonial, and administrative ambition. As the sun casts shadows across the layered mounds, highlighting terraces and walls that have stood for millennia, one is left with a profound sense of both awe and curiosity. Each brick, each carved relief, each carefully planned courtyard bears witness to human skill and imagination, yet the full story remains obscured. What knowledge guided the builders of Arslantepe? What social or spiritual imperatives shaped their monumental architecture? And what secrets, buried beneath layers of earth and time, might still await discovery, ready to reshape our understanding of early civilization and the impossible achievements of those who came before? From the layered mounds of Arslantepe, where early humans carved society into enduring architecture, our journey now sweeps across oceans and hemispheres once again, from the fertile plains of Anatolia to the rugged volcanic ranges of New Zealand's North Island. Here, nestled deep in the remote Kaimanawa ranges, lies the Kaimanawa Wall, a formation that has puzzled geologists, archaeologists, and explorers alike. At first glance, it appears to be a natural outcrop, yet its strikingly regular lines, angular blocks, and apparent alignment suggest a level of intentionality that raises questions about human or even proto-human activity in a region thought to have been uninhabited in prehistoric times. The Kaimanawa Wall stretches along a steep slope, its stone blocks aligned in what seems to be an almost architectural order. From a distance, it is a sheer face of rock, but closer inspection reveals linear grooves, sharp edges, and seemingly rectangular formations that appear deliberate. The surface is weathered, yet there is an unmistakable rhythm to the blocks. Some measure roughly equal heights, and the angles of their edges create the illusion of masonry carved by hands rather than nature. Shadows cast by the sun emphasize the geometric qualities, highlighting lines that appear far too precise to be entirely random. Could this formation be a naturally fractured rock, or does it bear the fingerprints of human construction, perhaps even a civilization lost to memory? Geologists who have studied the site often argue for natural explanations, citing the region's volcanic geology, tectonic activity, and erosion patterns as the forces responsible for the wall's appearance. Columnar basalt formations can fracture in regular patterns, producing vertical and horizontal lines that mimic human craftsmanship. Yet, some researchers note anomalies, the apparent consistency in block height, the near straight lines running along multiple layers, and the placement of certain stones in sequences that resemble terraces or retaining walls. How often does nature produce linear arrangements across several meters of cliff face with such visual regularity? And if natural forces were responsible, How could these structures appear so convincingly as if intended for habitation or ritual use? The history of human exploration at Kaimanawa is sparse, due to the region's inaccessibility and rugged terrain. Modern hikers and surveyors first brought attention to the wall in the late 20th century, reporting impressions of purpose, as if each block were deliberately positioned. Some enthusiasts propose connections to Polynesian settlers, theorizing that the wall could be a relic of pre-Maori civilizations or unknown maritime cultures. However, archaeological evidence for human activity in this region predating Maori settlement remains elusive. How could an advanced engineering project emerge in an area considered uninhabited? Could oral traditions, overlooked findings, or yet-to-be-discovered artifacts reveal a story that challenges established timelines? The Kaimanawa Wall also provokes reflection on its broader context. The ranges themselves are harsh and isolated, with steep cliffs, dense bush, and volatile weather. Any attempt to construct or modify stone formations here would have required exceptional planning, knowledge of materials, and sustained labor. What motivated such an effort? Was the wall functional, serving as a boundary, defensive structure, or terraced platform? Or did it hold symbolic significance, marking sacred land, astronomical alignment, or ceremonial use? The scale of the wall, coupled with its remote location, suggests a purpose beyond the practical, hinting at intentions now veiled by time. Some researchers have taken precise measurements of the stone blocks and alignment patterns, noting that certain segments exhibit right angles and consistent spacing. The regularity appears to repeat across multiple terraces of the formation, raising the question of intentionality versus natural coincidence. Could the wall represent an ancient surveying method, a prototype of construction principles, or even a ceremonial stage? And if so, what knowledge guided its creation, and how was it lost over the centuries? The possibility that human hands shaped portions of the Kaimanawa Wall, while others remain naturally formed, blurs the boundary between human and geological authorship, deepening the enigma. Beyond the visible formations, the surrounding landscape amplifies the mystery. Streams carve paths below the wall, and the terrain's elevation offers panoramic views of valleys and peaks, suggesting strategic placement if the wall were constructed. Could early inhabitants have used this vantage point for observation, signaling, or ritual activity? Or did the alignment of the rocks coincide with natural energy flows, sunlight angles, or seasonal changes, making the site both a practical and symbolic feature? Without material artifacts or definitive dating evidence, these questions remain speculative, but they highlight the sophistication of human perception and the possibility of intentional design. Further intrigue comes from local legends and oral histories. Some Maori elders and modern enthusiasts speak of unusual formations and spiritual significance associated with the ranges, describing the area as a place of power or sacredness. Could the Kaimanawa Wall have been integrated into cultural memory, its origins obscured but preserved in stories passed down through generations? And if so, what knowledge or ritual practice does it encode that modern eyes have yet to decode? Exploration of the wall is challenging. Steep access, loose scree, and dense vegetation make systematic excavation difficult. Yet, aerial photography and drone surveys reveal the extent of linear arrangements and apparent terraces that are otherwise impossible to appreciate from the ground. The more one examines the wall, the more it evokes both awe and perplexity. A formation that seems engineered, yet is inseparable from the wild. A structure that challenges our understanding of human capability in remote landscapes. How could people, or anyone, have coordinated such effort without leaving other traces of habitation? The Kaimanawa Wall forces a reconsideration of what is possible in remote archaeology. Its scale, precision, and location, invite questions about engineering skill, intentionality, and lost knowledge. Even if much of the formation is natural, the interplay of human perception, potential intervention, and geological processes creates a visual and conceptual puzzle that resists straightforward explanation. How often do we encounter sites where human ingenuity and natural processes converge so convincingly that the boundary between them becomes indistinguishable? Standing before the wall today, amid the dense bush and soaring peaks, it is difficult not to feel the weight of mystery. Each stone, each terrace, each shadowed groove prompts reflection on what has been achieved, what has been lost, and what might still be hidden. Is the Kaimanawa Wall simply a quirk of geology, or does it bear silent testimony to human ingenuity long forgotten? And if human hands did shape part of this formation, what social, spiritual, or technological knowledge guided its creation? And why has it left so few traces elsewhere in this unforgiving landscape? The Kaimanawa Wall endures as an open question, a challenge to both science and imagination. Its irregular perfection, its isolation, and its haunting presence make it a monument not only of stone, but of possibility. And as the wind sweeps through the valleys and light shifts across the cliffs, we are left to wonder, what secrets remain locked within these rocks, waiting for patient eyes and careful study to uncover? And how might they reshape our understanding of human potential in the most unlikely of places? From the rugged peaks and remote cliffs of New Zealand, where the Kaimanawa Wall rises with an enigmatic precision that blurs the line between natural and human design, our exploration now crosses once more into the Mediterranean, to the sun-baked landscapes of Sardinia. Here, scattered across the island, lie the Nuragic sacred wells foundations, ancient subterranean structures whose perfectly carved stone chambers and spiraling staircases hint at rituals, astronomical knowledge, and construction techniques that continue to elude full understanding. These wells are silent witnesses to a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago, leaving traces of both practicality and spirituality intertwined in stone. Approaching a Nuragic sacred well, the first impression is one of meticulous craftsmanship. Unlike ordinary wells, these are not merely functional sources of water. Their entrances often feature precisely cut stone blocks forming circular or elliptical chambers, descending in spiraling steps into the depths of the earth. The stones fit together with remarkable accuracy, their surfaces polished and joints almost seamless, resisting the passage of centuries. Light filters in from the top, casting long, contemplative shadows that accentuate the symmetry and geometry of the construction. Every element seems deliberate, as if designed not only to access water, but also to guide the eye, the movement, and perhaps even the spirit. These structures date primarily to the Bronze Age, between 1200 and 800 BCE, during the height of the Nuragic civilization. The Nuragic people left behind thousands of stone towers, tombs, and fortifications across Sardinia, yet their sacred wells are unique in their combination of engineering, ritual, and design. Archaeologists have noted that many wells were carefully aligned with celestial events, particularly the solstices, allowing sunlight to penetrate the chamber at precise angles on specific days of the year. What motivated such alignment? Was it purely symbolic, marking time for agricultural or ceremonial purposes? Or did it serve as a spiritual channel connecting earth and sky? The construction itself is a marvel of prehistoric engineering. Massive limestone blocks, sometimes weighing several tons, were transported and carved with remarkable precision, without the aid of iron tools. The spiraling staircases, descending with exacting curvature, maintain stability and cohesion even when the well is hundreds of years old. How did the Nuragic people achieve such geometrical sophistication? Was there a formal knowledge of engineering and load distribution passed down through apprenticeship? Or did it emerge from trial, error, and meticulous observation over generations? And if so, why does this level of technical mastery appear isolated, unmatched in neighboring Mediterranean cultures of the same period? Inside, the sacred wells carry an aura of intentionality beyond construction. Many contain niches, basins, or small chambers that may have been used for ritual offerings, libations, or ceremonies. Traces of pigments, organic residues, and carved symbols suggest that water was not merely consumed, but transformed into a medium of spiritual connection. Could the wells have functioned as portals to the underworld or as conduits for communication with deities or ancestors? Were the spiraling steps themselves designed to prepare initiates physically and mentally for what lay below, creating a journey that was both literal and symbolic? The alignment of some wells with celestial events adds another layer of mystery. At sunrise during the winter or summer solstice, beams of light penetrate the stairway and illuminate the central chamber, a phenomenon that could not have been accidental. Did the Nuragic people observe and calculate solar patterns with the precision necessary to integrate them into massive stone architecture? Could these wells have functioned as ancient observatories, guiding calendars, agriculture, or ceremonial cycles? And if so, what techniques allowed such precision in an era without written mathematical records? Speculation extends further when considering the broader cultural and spiritual landscape. Sardinia's topography, with hills, cliffs, and freshwater sources, suggests that the location of each well was chosen with care. Many wells are situated near hilltops or along ridges, suggesting both strategic visibility and a symbolic connection to natural energies. Could water itself have been considered sacred, a medium of life and spiritual energy amplified by stone chambers? Were these wells centers of community ritual, attracting people from surrounding settlements to participate in shared ceremonies? Or were they reserved for an elite priestly class? Even the patterns of construction pose questions. The spiral descent, the precision of stone fitting, and the curvature of the chambers all hint at a knowledge of geometry that is remarkable for the Bronze Age. Some modern engineers have noted that the Nuragic builders understood principles of weight distribution and stability, ensuring that walls would endure seismic activity and centuries of erosion. How much of this knowledge was empirical, gained through observation, and how much was part of a structured tradition of apprenticeship and teaching? And if such skill existed, why did it not leave broader written or architectural evidence elsewhere in the Mediterranean? Walking among these wells today, one senses a duality. The wells are both functional and enigmatic, earthly and spiritual. Descending the spiral steps, the air cools and thickens, and the chambers evoke a space of contemplation, mystery, and perhaps ritual initiation. Each stone seems to carry the weight of purpose and the imprint of countless hands. Every groove and polished surface invites questions about how these structures were conceived, built, and used. What ceremonies unfolded here? What observations or calculations guided the placement and alignment of each stone? And what has been lost to time, leaving us with the visual splendor but not the experiential knowledge of the Nuragic people? Even without definitive answers, the sacred wells of Sardinia challenge assumptions about prehistoric societies. They reveal a culture capable of blending technical skill, artistic sensibility, and spiritual insight into monumental structures that endure. Unlike ordinary wells or waterworks, these sacred wells represent an intersection of engineering, astronomy, ritual, and symbolism. How much of their design was inspired by empirical necessity, and how much by an understanding of forces, patterns, or cosmology now lost? Could these wells reflect knowledge of water, energy, or celestial cycles that remains underappreciated in modern archaeology? As the sunlight shifts across the spiral walls, illuminating niches and chambers in fleeting patterns, it is impossible not to feel the presence of intentionality, creativity, and wonder. The Nuragic sacred wells foundations are more than architectural feats. They are invitations to explore the intersection of human skill, spirituality, and observation. Each well, with its precise stones and spiraling descent, poses questions about the ingenuity, culture, and worldview of the people who created them. And as we peer into the shadowed depths, tracing the ancient steps that once carried priests, initiates, or entire communities, one is left to wonder, what knowledge, what rituals, and what insights remain hidden in these stone chambers, awaiting discovery, understanding, or simply reflection. From the spiraling stone chambers of Sardinia, where Nuragic sacred wells descend into the earth with precision, ritual, and an aura of mystery, our exploration now turns to the sun-drenched plains of southern Spain. Here, nestled among olive groves and gentle hills near Seville, lies the Dolmen de la Pastora, a megalithic tomb that has stood for over 5,000 years. At first glance, it may appear as a simple arrangement of stone, yet a closer look reveals careful design, intricate carving, and a placement that suggests both astronomical awareness and ritual significance, a monument to a culture whose practices and knowledge continue to puzzle scholars and visitors alike. The dolmen rises subtly from the landscape, partially hidden by grass and shrubs, yet commanding attention through the sheer scale of its stone construction. Massive vertical slabs form a rectangular chamber, capped by a monolithic roof stone that spans several meters. The entrance is framed with precision-cut stones, some decorated with engraved motifs whose meaning is still debated. As sunlight falls across the dolmen at dawn or dusk, shadows trace the lines of the stones with almost mathematical exactness, creating a shifting play of light and depth that emphasizes the monument's geometric harmony. How could people of the Neolithic period, with no written language or advanced tools, achieve such structural stability and proportional consistency? Archaeological research dates the Dolmen de la Pastora to around 3000 BCE, placing it firmly within the Chalcolithic period, a time when megalithic construction flourished across Europe. Excavations have revealed human remains, pottery fragments, and traces of ritual offerings, confirming its function as a burial and ceremonial site. Yet, unlike simpler burial mounds, the dolmen's construction exhibits a sophistication that raises questions about the technological knowledge and social organization required to build it. How did these communities quarry, transport, and position stones weighing multiple tons? And how did they coordinate labor, knowledge, and ritual purpose in an era without written records or mechanized tools? The internal layout of the dolmen is both practical and enigmatic. The chamber is rectangular, yet slightly tapered, leading the eye and body toward the rear where graves were placed. The roofstone, supported by standing megaliths, demonstrates an understanding of weight distribution and structural integrity that is astonishing for its time. Some researchers have noted that the chamber and entrance align with the sunrise on solstices, suggesting an awareness of astronomical events. Were these alignments intended as a calendar, guiding agricultural and ceremonial cycles, or did they hold spiritual significance, framing the rising sun as a symbol of life, death, and rebirth? Engraved motifs on some stones deepen the mystery. Geometric patterns, concentric circles, and abstract forms invite interpretation but resist definitive understanding. Do these designs represent cosmology, lineage, or ritual instruction? Could they encode knowledge of natural cycles, celestial events, or communal memory? The carvings are subtle, requiring close attention to detail, hinting that their meaning was perhaps only fully accessible to initiates or those versed in cultural lore. And yet, the intentionality is clear. These are not random scratches or decorations, but deliberate symbols, purposefully integrated into the very stones of the tomb. The placement of Dolmen de la Pastora within the landscape adds another layer of intrigue. Situated on a gentle rise, it overlooks the surrounding plain, creating visibility while maintaining a sense of seclusion. Nearby hills and natural features may have guided its orientation, connecting the site to water sources, celestial markers, or ritual pathways. Was the location chosen for its defensive practicality, symbolic resonance, or spiritual significance? Did the surrounding terrain influence ceremonial movement, guiding processions or marking sacred boundaries? The interplay between stone, earth, and horizon suggests a culture attuned to both environment and symbolism. Beyond its construction and orientation, the dolmen reflects the social complexity of its builders. Monumental architecture implies not only technical skill, but also the capacity to mobilize labor, organize resources, and instill shared purpose. How did these communities coordinate such efforts without formalized governance, writing, or mechanical advantage? Were such constructions reserved for elites, or did they serve as collective focal points for entire populations? The dolmen itself may have functioned as both a physical and symbolic anchor, a place where social, spiritual, and cosmic order intersected. Speculative interpretations have emerged alongside mainstream explanations. Some propose that the dolmen's structure and alignments indicate advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or engineering far beyond what was thought possible for Neolithic societies. Others suggest that the chamber's acoustics and confined spaces were used for ritual sound, chanting, or meditation, enhancing spiritual or communal experience. Could the dolmen have been both a tomb and a temple, a place where life, death, and celestial cycles converged? While evidence remains circumstantial, the design encourages these questions and underscores the complexity of human creativity and ingenuity. Walking among the stones today, it is impossible not to feel the resonance of human intention. The massive slabs, carved motifs, and geometric precision speak to planning, labor, and cultural sophistication. Shadows stretch across the chamber, light traces the carvings, and the wind carries the silence of millennia. Every detail, from the tapering chamber to the roofstone's weight-bearing perfection, invites reflection on the people who created it, the knowledge they possessed, and the rituals that once filled the space. How much of that knowledge has been lost, leaving us to interpret only the silent stones? Dolmen de la Pastora challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric society. It demonstrates not only physical prowess but also spatial awareness, symbolic thinking, and ritual sophistication. The combination of precise construction, artistic expression, and astronomical alignment illustrates a culture that engaged with both the material and spiritual worlds, leaving behind a legacy that continues to intrigue scholars and visitors alike. How did these early people balance practicality, spirituality, and artistic expression in a single, monumental construction? What knowledge guided each decision, and why has it vanished so completely from the historical record? As the sun sets over the Andalusian plains, the Dolmen de la Pastora casts long, contemplative shadows across the grass. Its stones, weathered yet unyielding, preserve the intention of a people long gone, a civilization whose technical and spiritual achievements continue to challenge our understanding. Each slab, each carved line, and each alignment with the horizon seems to ask a question of the modern observer. What knowledge, what rituals, what understanding of cosmos and society remain hidden within this silent monument? And as we ponder the dolmen's secrets, one cannot help but wonder, how many more truths lie buried in stone, waiting to be discovered by those patient enough to look beyond the surface? From the rolling plains of Andalusia, where the Dolmen de la Pastora rises in solemn silence, carefully aligned and meticulously carved, our journey now carries us across continents and centuries to the tropical lowlands of Veracruz, Mexico. Here, hidden amid the humid forests and gently undulating terrain, lie the Cempoala stone circles, a cluster of megalithic arrangements whose origin, purpose, and construction continue to intrigue archaeologists and explorers alike. At first glance, the stones may seem simple in form, yet their precise placement, alignment, and sheer scale suggest a deliberate design that invites questions about the knowledge and intent of the civilizations that shaped them. The stone circles are scattered across an open area, their positions tracing patterns that are both geometric and enigmatic. Some circles measure several meters in diameter, composed of stones carefully chosen for size and shape, laid flat or upright in subtle formations that hint at ceremonial or astronomical use. Unlike random field stones, each block appears considered, placed with attention to proportion and relationship to its neighbors. The ground itself is leveled in areas where the circles sit, creating a sense of deliberate order amidst the natural undulations of the terrain. Shadows play across the stones as the sun arcs overhead, emphasizing the geometric regularity and raising questions about observation and intention. Could these circles have functioned as ritual spaces, gathering points, or calendars? Or might they encode knowledge lost to time, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of celestial patterns and social organization? Archaeological research dates Cempoala to the late post-classic period, around 900 to 1519 CE, associated primarily with Totonac culture, although the site shows evidence of earlier occupation as well. Written records from the Spanish conquest describe Cempoala as a significant settlement, yet the stone circles themselves remain shrouded in mystery. Were they integral to civic planning, spiritual practice, or social ceremonies? Some scholars suggest that the circles mark astronomical events, solstices, equinoxes, or the passage of Venus. But the precision and consistency across multiple circles remain difficult to explain. How could ancient peoples without modern surveying equipment achieve such accuracy in alignment and proportion? The construction techniques themselves are remarkable. Stones vary in size and shape, yet their arrangement within each circle suggests a sophisticated understanding of geometry and spatial awareness. Some stones appear intentionally shaped or smoothed, their placement maintaining perfect circular forms and distances that are visually harmonious. Could the builders have had a conceptual framework for proportion and symmetry, perhaps transmitted orally across generations? And if so, why did such knowledge not leave broader architectural footprints across the region, outside of ceremonial sites like Cempoala? The circles' spatial distribution also invites speculation. They are clustered in groups, yet some stand apart, seemingly isolated. Paths and low terraces interconnect some circles, hinting at ritual processions, communal gatherings, or symbolic movement through space. Were participants in ceremonies meant to follow a precise route, stepping from one circle to another, each stage corresponding to a particular ritual, solar observation, or social instruction? Or did the circles function independently, each marking a sacred spot, a burial ground, or a place of celestial observation? Some of the stones bear subtle carvings, spirals, lines, or abstract motifs that echo broader Mesoamerican symbolism. These markings, faint and worn, suggest a symbolic or communicative purpose beyond mere physical construction. Could these carvings encode spiritual narratives, astronomical calculations, or social hierarchies? And if so, how was this knowledge taught and preserved, especially in a society that relied primarily on oral tradition and pictorial codices? The possibility that these circles were not merely static constructions, but part of a dynamic system of knowledge and ritual challenges our assumptions about what ancient peoples could achieve without written mathematical notation or advanced technology. The surrounding landscape itself enhances the enigma. The circles sit amid hills, low ridges, and watercourses, sometimes aligned with natural features that accentuate their positions. The interplay between stone, earth, and horizon suggests intentional selection of each site. Was this done purely for visibility and ceremonial prominence? Or did the locations hold spiritual significance, connecting the circles to celestial events, sacred topography, or mythical narratives? Some theorists even propose that the circles were designed to resonate with environmental energy, sunlight, or sound during specific rituals, a concept that merges practical observation with spiritual awareness. Speculative interpretations deepen when considering the number, scale, and consistency of the stone circles. Could they have been used as astronomical observatories, timing agricultural cycles or guiding navigation? Or perhaps as communal ritual spaces, each circle corresponding to a different stage of spiritual or social practice? Some researchers suggest that the Totonac or their predecessors integrated symbolic knowledge of life cycles, cosmology, and power into the very layout of these stones. And yet, in the absence of definitive records, these interpretations remain tantalizing hypotheses rather than certainties. Walking among the circles today, one is struck by the deliberate rhythm of their placement. The human eye can sense symmetry, alignment, and proportion even in the subtle irregularities of weathered stone. Each circle seems to hold a conversation with the others, as if the site were designed for observation, reflection, and participation in a complex system now largely hidden from us. What ceremonies unfolded here? What knowledge, ritual, or social understanding guided the placement of each stone? How much has been lost to erosion, agriculture, or centuries of human activity? The Cempoala stone circles challenge modern perspectives on the capabilities of ancient societies. They reflect not only technical skill in moving, shaping, and placing massive stones, but also a sophisticated awareness of space, time, and environment. These circles suggest intentionality, planning, and social cohesion, as well as a sensitivity to symbolic and possibly astronomical forces. How did these ancient builders transmit knowledge across generations to maintain consistency in form, alignment, and function? Could the circles be part of a broader system of knowledge that combined observation, ritual, and community practice in ways that modern scholars are only beginning to grasp? As sunlight shifts across the weathered stones, casting elongated shadows and illuminating subtle carvings, it is impossible not to feel the presence of deliberate design, communal effort, and spiritual intention. The Cempoala stone circles stand as a monument to human curiosity, ingenuity, and ritual expression, yet they remain deeply enigmatic. Every stone, every circle, and every alignment seems to ask questions that time has yet to answer. What was the true purpose of these circles? How did they influence the lives, beliefs, and practices of those who built and used them? And what secrets, carefully encoded in stone and shadow, still await discovery by those patient enough to study them closely? In the end, the Cempoala stone circles invite us to contemplate the ingenuity and imagination of cultures long past. They remind us that even in an era without advanced technology, societies could conceive, plan, and execute constructions that endure across millennia, evoking awe, curiosity, and mystery. And as the wind whispers through the trees and the sun sets over the lowlands, one cannot help but wonder what knowledge, ritual, or understanding of the cosmos remains hidden within these circles, waiting for those who are willing to uncover the echoes of the past. From the tropical lowlands of Veracruz, where the Cempoala stone circles stand as silent witnesses to ritual, astronomy, and communal ingenuity, our journey now ascends dramatically to the highlands of central Peru. Here, at an altitude exceeding 4,000 meters, amid windswept plateaus and jagged cliffs, lie the Marcahuasi stone formations, an extraordinary landscape of towering granite monoliths whose shapes evoke faces, animals, and enigmatic figures. At first glance, they seem like the natural handiwork of wind and water, yet the precise silhouettes, occasional geometric alignments, and local legends hint at a deeper mystery, a place where human perception, myth, and possibly ancient construction converge in ways that continue to baffle researchers and visitors alike. The Marcahuasi Plateau stretches across the Andean highlands, a stark, windswept expanse dotted with massive stones rising from the earth like petrified giants. The sun casts long shadows across the formations, revealing surfaces that are smooth in some areas, sharply angular in others, and occasionally bearing patterns that appear almost deliberate. From certain angles, the stones resemble human faces, profiles, or even animals frozen in stone, provoking the imagination while simultaneously compelling scientific inquiry. Could these forms be entirely natural, sculpted by millennia of erosion, frost, and seismic activity? Or did human hands intervene at some point, shaping, polishing, or arranging stones to convey meaning, ritual, or observation? Local lore speaks of Marcahuasi as a sacred place, imbued with energy and spiritual resonance. Legends describe the plateau as a center of ancient worship, meditation, and mystical experience, attracting those seeking communion with the cosmos or enlightenment. While these accounts cannot be verified, they reflect the extraordinary impression that the stones make on those who encounter them. How much of the awe inspired by Marcahuasi is due to natural perception, and how much might indicate deliberate ancient design? The interplay between human imagination, cultural memory, and natural forces makes interpretation a delicate task. Geologically, the formations are primarily granite, known for its durability and susceptibility to jointing patterns, which can produce unusual shapes over time. Experts acknowledge that wind, water, and temperature fluctuations can carve blocks into jagged or rounded forms, creating striking silhouettes. Yet some observers note features that seem too symmetrical, too figurative, or too aligned to be purely coincidental. Certain monoliths appear in clusters that suggest intentional arrangement, while others form linear paths or circles that invite speculation about observation points, ceremonial pathways, or symbolic representation. Could the builders of Marcahuasi have combined natural topography with subtle shaping techniques, producing a hybrid landscape of natural and human-influenced forms? The scale and positioning of the stones add to the mystery. Some monoliths rise over 10 meters above the plateau, casting shadows that shift dramatically with the movement of the sun. Others are smaller, perfectly positioned to create sightlines or alignments with prominent peaks, valleys, or the horizon itself. Could these alignments reflect knowledge of solar, lunar, or stellar cycles, guiding ritual, agricultural timing, or astronomical observation? Some enthusiasts speculate that the plateau served as a calendar or observatory, where specific formations marked the passage of seasons or celestial events. While evidence for this remains circumstantial, the precision and repetition of certain angles and shapes warrant serious consideration. Further intrigue comes from the occasional geometric appearance of the stones. Some monoliths resemble stepped platforms, truncated pyramids, or abstract carvings, inviting questions about whether ancient artisans might have intentionally modified their shapes. Could these modifications have been subtle, enhancing natural forms rather than constructing entirely new ones, leaving evidence that is difficult to distinguish from erosion? If so, what knowledge, tools, or techniques might have been employed to manipulate granite at such altitude and scale without leaving more overt traces? Marcahuasi's cultural significance is equally compelling. Archaeologists suggest the plateau may have been used for ceremonial or ritual purposes by pre-Inca societies, long before the rise of the Inca Empire. The remote location, harsh climate, and sheer effort required to access and inhabit the plateau indicate intentionality. This was not a casual site, but a place chosen and preserved for reasons of power, spirituality, or observation. Could the monoliths have served as focal points for meditation, worship, or communication with the natural and celestial world? And if so, what rituals or knowledge were encoded in their placement, shape, or alignment? Speculation extends to the broader topography. Marcahuasi sits on an elevated plateau, commanding panoramic views of surrounding valleys and mountains. The terrain itself could have guided perception and ritual practice, creating pathways, observation points, and spaces for reflection. The combination of isolation, altitude, and dramatic geological formations may have inspired awe and contemplation, serving both practical and symbolic purposes. Could the site have been intentionally chosen to amplify its spiritual or observational qualities, integrating natural and potentially human-modified elements into a coherent landscape of meaning? Walking among the stones today, one senses both enormity and subtlety. Each monolith, each jagged edge, and each shadowed crevice seems purposeful, even if the intent is lost to time. The wind whistles across the plateau, echoing in gaps between rocks, while sunlight illuminates textures and forms that shift dramatically with perspective. Observers cannot help but feel that the space was meant to be experienced in motion, with sight lines, shadow patterns, and scale interacting to create a dynamic, almost performative experience. How much of this effect is natural, and how much reflects deliberate human vision? The Marcahuasi stone formations challenge conventional assumptions about ancient capabilities. Whether natural, human-shaped, or a combination of both, the site demonstrates a profound connection between observation, art, and space. The precision of certain shapes, the strategic placement of stones, and the evocative figures that emerge at specific angles speak to a perception of geometry, symbolism, and landscape that is extraordinary. What knowledge guided the interaction between humans and stone here? Could advanced observation, ritual, or even artistic expression account for these forms in ways that modern science has only begun to consider? As the sun dips behind the distant Andean peaks, casting long shadows across the weathered granite, Marcahuasi stands in quiet testament to mystery, skill, and human perception. Each stone, each silhouette, and each alignment seems to invite contemplation. What did those who first encountered or shaped these stones see, feel, and intend? How much of their knowledge was preserved, how much has been lost, and how much remains hidden in plain sight? And as the wind sweeps across the plateau, rustling through the stones and whispering through the high-altitude air, one is left to wonder, what truths, rituals, or insights lie embedded in Marcahuasi, waiting for those willing to look beyond the surface and into the enigmatic forms of these enduring monoliths? From the windswept granite plateaus of Marcahuasi, where sculpted monoliths rise like sentinels beneath the Andean sky, our exploration now returns to Europe, to the rolling plains and rugged hills of the Iberian Peninsula. Here, on a modest elevation near the town of Loures in Portugal, lies the Zambujal fortified complex, a Bronze Age settlement whose stone walls, circular towers, and layered terraces speak of a civilization both sophisticated and enigmatic. At first glance, it appears as an ancient fort, a simple defensive outpost. Yet, closer study reveals an intricate network of construction, planning, and communal organization that challenges our understanding of prehistoric societies in this region and invites questions that modern archaeology struggles to answer. The complex is built upon a naturally defensible hill, its elevation offering commanding views over the surrounding landscape. The remains of massive stone walls and circular towers rise from the earth like echoes of a forgotten past. The walls, composed of carefully shaped limestone blocks, form a continuous line punctuated by bastions and gates, some measuring several meters in thickness. From certain angles, the construction seems almost impossible for a culture without metal tools or advanced machinery to have achieved. How did the builders quarry, shape, and transport stones of this magnitude? What knowledge guided the precise placement of each block, ensuring stability and cohesion over millennia? Archaeologists date Zambujal to the Late Bronze Age, roughly between 1300 and 700 BCE. Excavations reveal a densely organized settlement, with streets, terraces, and domestic spaces integrated into the fortification. The scale of planning suggests a sophisticated social structure, capable of mobilizing labor and resources over extended periods. Yet, despite these discoveries, many aspects of Zambujal remain enigmatic. Why were some areas heavily fortified while others seem open to the surrounding hills? Did these choices reflect purely defensive concerns, or did they carry ritual, social, or symbolic meaning? The interior of the complex offers further mysteries. Circular stone foundations hint at roundhouses, communal spaces, or ritual enclosures. Storage pits and evidence of metalworking suggest an economy more complex than mere subsistence, while carefully designed terraces indicate an understanding of landscape engineering, erosion control, and water management. How did these ancient builders combine functional needs with long-term planning, particularly in a society without written plans or formal engineering training? Could certain architectural features have held symbolic or ceremonial significance, intended to communicate power, identity, or spiritual order to the inhabitants? One of the most puzzling aspects of Zambujal is the precision of its construction. The walls follow a carefully plotted perimeter, incorporating natural features into the defensive design. Some blocks exhibit tight joints and smooth surfaces, fitted together in ways that resist the passage of time and natural erosion. The circular towers, spaced along the fortifications, provide elevated vantage points that suggest strategic foresight. Was this level of sophistication the product of trial and error over generations, or did the builders possess knowledge of geometry, surveying, and structural principles that modern scholars have only begun to understand? Evidence also suggests ritual or symbolic behavior embedded within the architecture. Certain enclosures and terraces align with cardinal points or local topographical features, raising the possibility of astronomical observation, ceremonial practice, or social signaling. Could these alignments have guided agricultural cycles, communal gatherings, or religious ceremonies? Were the fortifications themselves not only defensive structures but also markers of social hierarchy, intended to convey power and cohesion to those both within and beyond the settlement? The Zambujal fortified complex challenges assumptions about the capabilities of Bronze Age societies in Western Europe. Moving massive stones, constructing multi-layered defenses, and integrating communal and ceremonial spaces requires advanced coordination, organization, and technical knowledge. How did a society without metal saws, cranes, or modern surveying tools achieve such enduring construction? Were these feats purely pragmatic, or did they carry layers of symbolic meaning designed to resonate across generations? And if some of this knowledge has been lost, what might it tell us about human ingenuity, collaboration, and the unrecorded history of early civilizations? Further intrigue arises from the sheer longevity of the site. Zambujal was not a fleeting settlement. It was occupied and modified over centuries. Successive generations rebuilt walls, expanded terraces, and adapted structures to changing needs, demonstrating both continuity and innovation. How did the society maintain such cohesion and knowledge transmission over time? Did they employ apprenticeship systems, oral traditions, or communal memory to pass down technical expertise? And if so, what caused this knowledge to vanish, leaving only the stone foundations as testimony to their skill? Walking among the ruins today, one feels the scale and deliberation of the original builders. The remaining walls, though weathered and partially collapsed, still convey a sense of order and purpose. The terraces and foundations invite reflection on the daily lives of those who inhabited the fort, families, artisans, leaders, and perhaps priests, each contributing to a complex society capable of achieving remarkable feats. Yet, so much remains unseen, buried beneath centuries of soil, vegetation, and human activity. How many layers of history lie hidden, waiting to reveal the full story of Zambujal and the people who shaped it? The fort's enduring mystery lies not only in its physical construction, but also in the questions it provokes about social organization, technological capability, and cultural intent. Could the builders have possessed a conceptual understanding of geometry and planning that allowed them to construct such precise and enduring structures? Were ceremonial or symbolic considerations as important as practical ones in determining the fort's layout? And if these mysteries remain unsolved, what does that say about the limits of modern interpretation in the face of ancient ingenuity? As sunlight slants across the terraces and towers, casting long shadows that highlight the meticulous stonework, Zambujal stands as both a monument and a puzzle. Its walls and foundations testify to human skill, social coordination, and a complex understanding of environment and materials. Yet the purpose, motivations, and full knowledge behind this fortified complex remain elusive. Each stone, each terrace, and each tower seems to whisper questions across the centuries. How did this society achieve such precision and durability? What rituals, ceremonies, or social structures guided their planning? And what truths about human potential, ingenuity, and lost knowledge still lie buried within these enduring walls, awaiting discovery by those patient enough to look closely and think deeply? From the fortified terraces of Zambujal, where Bronze Age ingenuity is etched into stone walls and circular towers, our exploration now travels south across the Mediterranean to the plains of northeastern Algeria. Here, amid rolling fields and scattered limestone outcrops, lies the Dolmen of Roknia, a monumental necropolis whose countless megalithic structures stretch as far as the eye can see. At first glance, these dolmens appear as solitary stone markers, yet as one moves through the landscape, the sheer scale, precise placement, and repetitive patterns hint at a civilization capable of remarkable organization, labor coordination, and ritual sophistication, leaving questions that modern archaeology still struggles to answer. The Roknia dolmens rise from the earth like silent sentinels. Each structure typically consists of several massive vertical slabs supporting a horizontal capstone, forming rectangular or slightly trapezoidal chambers. Some stones weigh several tons, yet they are arranged with striking precision, suggesting advanced understanding of weight distribution and spatial planning. As sunlight shifts across the stones, shadows carve deep angles that accentuate their geometric forms, making them appear simultaneously natural and intentional. Could these monuments have been erected purely for burial, or do they also encode astronomical, ritual, or symbolic knowledge lost to time? Archaeological surveys estimate that the Roknia necropolis contains over 7,000 dolmens, dispersed across a landscape of roughly 2,000 square kilometers. Dating remains challenging, but many scholars place their construction in the late Neolithic to early Bronze Age, around 3000 to 2000 BCE. The sheer number of monuments suggests a sustained effort across generations, implying social cohesion, labor mobilization, and cultural continuity that would be remarkable for prehistoric societies. How was knowledge transmitted across generations to maintain consistent architectural standards? Were these dolmens the work of a centralized authority, or did multiple communities contribute, guided by shared cultural and spiritual principles? The internal structure of the dolmens raises further intrigue. Chambers are often compact yet functional, designed to house human remains, funerary offerings, or ritual artifacts. In some cases, Small niches or depressions in the stone indicate the placement of objects, perhaps offerings or tools meant to accompany the dead into the afterlife. Could these subtle features reflect a codified system of ritual practice, or do they hint at symbolic gestures whose full meaning has been lost? The precision with which these spaces were carved invites speculation about the techniques and tools used, particularly in the absence of metal chisels or advanced lifting devices. How did communities achieve this level of engineering in a landscape that is largely open and unprotected from environmental erosion? One of the most striking features of Roknia is the apparent alignment of certain dolmens with one another. When viewed from a distance, clusters form linear or radial patterns that suggest deliberate placement. Could these alignments have served practical purposes, such as pathways, territorial markers, or observation points? Or did they hold ritual significance, guiding movement through sacred space, or aligning with celestial events like solstices or the passage of specific stars? While some archaeologists caution against overinterpretation, the repetition of geometric arrangements across thousands of dolmens is difficult to dismiss as purely coincidental. The cultural and spiritual implications of the dolmens deepen the mystery. Burial practices often include careful orientation, with chambers aligned to cardinal directions or local topography. This intentionality hints at cosmological awareness, linking the resting places of the dead to the cycles of the sun, moon, or stars. Were these alignments symbolic, designed to connect the living with the cosmos, or practical, guiding community organization and landscape navigation? And if astronomical knowledge was encoded in the placement of the dolmens, what methods did prehistoric people employ to observe and integrate celestial patterns into their monuments without written records? Construction techniques also raise questions. Stones are quarried, transported, and lifted into position with apparent skill, yet evidence for the tools and methods used remains scarce. Were simple levers, wooden rollers, and coordinated manpower sufficient, or does the precision suggest methods not yet understood by modern researchers? Furthermore, the repetition of design elements across the site, uniform chamber dimensions, consistent capstone placements, and similar orientations indicate standardization. How did these communities achieve uniformity across a sprawling landscape, and why did such techniques vanish without leaving further evidence in neighboring regions? Even the scale of the necropolis challenges conventional understanding of prehistoric society. The density and distribution of the dolmens imply coordinated planning and communal effort over long periods. Was there a social hierarchy capable of directing labor, or did these constructions emerge from collective cultural knowledge shared across multiple settlements? And if such knowledge existed, why does it leave no comparable counterparts in other regions of North Africa? Could Roknia represent a unique cultural phenomenon, a convergence of ritual, engineering, and astronomical awareness that remains isolated in both time and space? Walking among the dolmens today, one feels the weight of human intention and the passage of millennia. Each stone, worn by wind and rain, retains the silent testimony of hands that moved, lifted, and positioned massive blocks with remarkable care. The space invites reflection on mortality, spirituality, and human ingenuity. How did communities sustain the labor and focus required for such monumental work? And how much of the original cultural and spiritual meaning has been lost to time? Speculative interpretations abound. Some researchers propose that clusters of dolmens were designed to encode social memory, cosmology, or communal identity. Others suggest they may have served as observatories, ritual landscapes, or markers of sacred energy. Could it be that the dolmens were not simply graves, but part of a larger system of cultural, spiritual, and astronomical knowledge? And if so, how much remains hidden beneath centuries of soil, vegetation, and the shifting sands of history? The Roknia necropolis continues to challenge modern archaeology, not only because of its scale and precision, but also because of its apparent integration of utility, ritual, and observation. The dolmens are simultaneously practical, symbolic, and enigmatic, a blend of form and purpose that defies simple explanation. Each monument invites questions about prehistoric knowledge, engineering, and cultural sophistication. How much of their skill, intention, and ritual practice can we truly reconstruct? And how many details remain forever obscured by time, leaving only the silent stone as a testament to human imagination and ingenuity? As sunlight stretches across the endless fields of dolmens, casting long shadows that accentuate their form, the Dolmen of Roknia stands as both monument and mystery. The repetition of chambers, the precision of alignment, and the deliberate positioning of massive stones evoke a culture capable of remarkable technical and social achievements. Yet the reasons behind these constructions, the rituals, observations, and intentions, remain tantalizingly out of reach. Each stone, each pattern, each shadow invites the observer to reflect on what has been lost and what might still lie hidden. The knowledge, the ceremonies, the ingenuity, and perhaps even the worldview of a people who shaped this landscape with profound purpose. From the sprawling necropolis of Roknia, where thousands of dolmens stretch across the Algerian plains in silent testament to human ambition, ritual, and ingenuity, our journey now carries us across the Mediterranean to the rocky hills and sun-drenched landscapes of the Peloponnese in Greece. Here, amidst the remains of Mycenaean citadels and hilltop settlements, lie the lesser Tholos tombs, smaller counterparts to the monumental treasury of Atreus and other grand beehive tombs, yet no less mysterious. These tombs, with their corbelled domes, circular chambers, and carefully fitted stones, offer glimpses into a culture of both technical sophistication and symbolic complexity, one whose methods of construction and ceremonial purpose continue to elude modern understanding. Approaching a lesser Tholos tomb, one is immediately struck by the harmony between architecture and landscape. Built into hillsides or atop modest rises, these tombs appear as if they emerge organically from the earth, their circular forms echoing the contours of the terrain. A stone-lined dromos, or entrance passage, leads inward, sloping gently down to a circular chamber capped by a corbelled roof of massive stones, arranged with such precision that the entire structure can endure centuries of weight and seismic activity. How did the Mycenaeans, with no modern cranes or metal fasteners, manage to position these massive blocks with such accuracy and stability? And how did the builders achieve perfect alignment, both geometrically and in harmony with the surrounding topography? The lesser Tholos tombs, though smaller than their grander counterparts, still demonstrate remarkable architectural and engineering skill. The corbelled dome, a hallmark of Mycenaean construction, creates an inward-sloping canopy that evenly distributes weight and prevents collapse, a technique that anticipates knowledge of structural forces far in advance of its time. Archaeologists have noted the meticulous shaping of stones, often fitted without mortar, forming interlocking joints that have withstood millennia. Was this mastery purely empirical, born of careful trial and error over generations, or did it emerge from an inherited body of technical knowledge, preserved orally or through practice? Inside the tomb, the circular chamber conveys both intimacy and purpose. Burials often consisted of single or multiple interments, accompanied by grave goods ranging from pottery and bronze weapons to ornaments and ceremonial objects. These artifacts speak to the social status of the deceased and the ceremonial significance of the tomb itself. Yet, despite careful excavation, many questions remain. Why did some tombs include elaborate dromoi, while others had minimal entrances? Were these differences purely functional, or did they reflect social hierarchy, ritual purpose, or symbolic meaning tied to cosmology and ancestor worship? Orientation and placement add another layer of intrigue. Many lesser Tholos tombs are aligned with cardinal points, solar paths, or natural landmarks, suggesting a deliberate integration of astronomical observation into funerary practice. Could the orientation have guided rituals timed to the cycles of the sun, the seasons, or other celestial phenomena? Did the Mycenaeans perceive a connection between the passage of the sun and the journey of the soul, encoding cosmological understanding into the very stones of these tombs? The subtlety of such alignments, repeated across multiple sites, hints at knowledge of a kind that was both practical and symbolic, merging engineering and spirituality in ways that remain difficult to fully interpret. The construction of the lesser Tholos tombs also speaks to social organization. Moving and shaping massive stones, building corbelled chambers, and coordinating labor over extended periods would have required careful planning, sustained effort, and skilled oversight. Was this accomplished under centralized leadership or through communal labor guided by shared cultural norms? How did knowledge of precise geometry, corbelling techniques, and structural stability propagate within these communities, particularly in an era without written engineering manuals or standardized tools? Despite their smaller size, these tombs retain a powerful sense of ritual space. The dromos often extends several meters, creating a transitional corridor that separates the world of the living from the domain of the dead. Walking along these passages, one senses a deliberate shaping of experience. The narrowing walls, the rising or sloping path, the interplay of light and shadow, all combine to heighten anticipation and reverence. Were these spaces intended to prepare participants for interaction with the divine or the departed, guiding movement and perception as part of a ritualized experience? Speculation arises when considering the variability and precision of the tombs. Some chambers contain niches, recesses, or engraved symbols whose meanings remain unknown. Could these features encode spiritual instructions, ancestral lineage, or astronomical markers? Might the tombs themselves have functioned as observatories, sacred spaces, or mnemonic devices linking generations of Mycenaeans to cultural memory and cosmic order? And if so, why has much of this knowledge vanished, leaving only stone forms and tantalizing traces for modern researchers to interpret? The broader landscape of Mycenaean tombs provides further context, yet deepens the mystery. Lesser Tholos tombs often cluster near citadels or settlements, yet their precise placement suggests consideration of topography, visibility, and perhaps spiritual resonance. Were these tombs situated to align with hills, valleys, or watercourses, integrating the natural environment into ritual practice? How did these communities select locations that balanced accessibility, symbolism, and defense, while simultaneously reflecting cosmological understanding? The intersection of landscape, construction, and ceremony suggests a culture highly attuned to both practical and spiritual dimensions of space. Even today, these tombs provoke awe and reflection. The corbelled ceilings, circular chambers, and carefully fitted stones convey a sense of permanence, intention, and reverence. The tombs seem designed not only to house the dead, but to communicate a worldview, one in which geometry, ritual, and human labor converge in enduring monuments. Yet, for all their sophistication, the true knowledge, intent, and symbolism encoded within these structures remain largely obscured. What beliefs guided the construction? What rituals unfolded within these walls? And what secrets of social organization, spiritual insight, or technical mastery have been lost to time? The lesser Tholos tombs challenge assumptions about the capabilities of prehistoric civilizations. They demonstrate advanced engineering, social coordination, and ritual sophistication, yet they are also subtle and intimate in contrast to the monumental grandeur of tombs like the treasury of Atreus. How did the Mycenaeans achieve such a balance, blending scale, precision, and ceremonial function. Could these tombs reflect knowledge of structural forces, astronomy, or symbolic meaning that has no modern equivalent? And if so, what does that imply about the sophistication and cultural depth of societies that existed more than 3 millennia ago? Walking through a lesser Tholos today, one cannot ignore the interplay of stone, shadow, and space. Each corbelled roof, each circular chamber, and each carefully fitted block conveys both technical skill and cultural intent. Sunlight slants along Dromoy, highlighting subtle contours, while wind whispers through open entrances, evoking the passage of centuries. The experience is immersive. The tombs are both practical and spiritual, functional and symbolic, yet they remain deeply enigmatic. How did the builders perceive space, light, and weight? How much of their knowledge was empirical, and how much inspired by ritual or cosmology? As the sun dips over the rugged hills, casting the lesser Tholos tombs in golden light, one is left with a profound sense of mystery. These structures are more than mere graves. They are embodiments of social organization, spiritual insight, and technical ingenuity. Yet so much of their purpose, symbolism, and methodology remains hidden beneath layers of time. Each stone, each chamber, and each alignment invites us to wonder what knowledge, what ceremonies, and what insights were encoded in these enduring monuments, and how many secrets of Mycenaean life, death, and cosmology have yet to be discovered by those patient enough to follow their silent guidance? From the sunlit hills and corbelled chambers of the Mycenaean Lesser Tholos tombs, where precision, ritual, and human ingenuity intertwine in enduring stone, our journey now moves northwest, across the European continent, to the windswept coasts of Brittany, France. Here, near the small village of Locmariaquer, lies the Grand Menhir base, the colossal foundation of a megalith that once towered over the landscape with unimaginable scale and presence. Today, only the base remains, a fractured and weathered slab of pink granite stretching more than 20 meters, yet even in its broken state, it evokes awe, curiosity, and questions that continue to challenge historians, engineers, and archaeologists alike. The sheer size of the Grand Menhir base is staggering. Carved from a single block of granite, it measures over 20 meters in length, more than 4 meters in width, and weighs an estimated 330 tons. Even laying it flat required extraordinary effort, and the original menhir, once erected, would have dwarfed the surrounding landscape. Walking along the base, one is struck by the precision of its shape. The granite has been carefully squared and leveled, forming a solid platform that seems to defy the limitations of Neolithic technology. How did a society without cranes, pulleys, or iron tools manage to quarry, transport, and shape such a massive stone with such accuracy? And perhaps most perplexingly, what purpose could a single, colossal monolith serve in a community that left few written records? Archaeological evidence suggests that the Grand Menhir was erected during the late Neolithic period, around 4700 BCE, as part of a larger megalithic complex that includes the nearby Table des Marchands and various dolmens. The site, situated on a coastal plateau overlooking the Atlantic, would have been highly visible from miles around. Such prominence suggests ritual, ceremonial, or symbolic significance. Was the menhir a territorial marker, a celestial pointer, or a monument commemorating an event or deity? The sheer scale hints at social organization, requiring coordinated labor, knowledge of engineering, and a communal commitment to a project that could span months or even years. How did Neolithic societies coordinate such feats without written plans or formal surveying techniques? The base itself is not merely a slab. It bears subtle shaping, smoothing, and alignment features that hint at a sophisticated understanding of geometry and proportion. Some researchers have noted that its long axis aligns approximately with nearby sites and topographical features, perhaps indicating ritual or astronomical intention. Could the original erect menhir have marked the rising of the sun on a solstice, or served as a reference point for the lunar cycle? And if so, what methods did prehistoric engineers use to observe celestial events, translate them into precise alignments, and maintain that accuracy over generations? Transporting the menhir to the base is equally enigmatic. Quarrying granite in Neolithic Brittany required immense labor and ingenuity. Tools were likely limited to stone hammers, antler picks, and wooden levers. How was a single stone weighing hundreds of tons moved over rough terrain? Some theorists propose the use of sledges, rollers, or lubricated pathways, but evidence is largely circumstantial. Could the builders have relied on techniques now lost to time, blending empirical observation, communal experience, and sheer perseverance to achieve what modern engineers still find difficult? Even the fracture of the Grand Menhir raises questions. At some point, the towering stone broke, possibly during transport, erection, or through natural forces. Yet, despite its destruction, the base remains remarkably intact. Does this suggest deliberate shaping to accommodate structural stability or intentional modularity in construction? Could the breakage itself have been symbolic, a planned ritual act marking transformation, or simply an accident whose consequences reverberate across millennia? The broader context of Locmariaquer adds layers to the mystery. The base is part of a ceremonial landscape that includes dolmens, smaller menhirs, and the Table des Marchands, an elongated chambered tomb adorned with carved symbols. The juxtaposition of these monuments suggests a culture that integrated burial, ritual, and monumental construction into a cohesive spatial and symbolic framework. Were these stones designed to communicate specific cosmological knowledge, social hierarchy, or spiritual practice? And if so, how was such knowledge transmitted in a society without written language or formal codified records? Symbolism and perception are central to the Grand Menhir's impact. Even in its fallen state, the base conveys power, permanence, and deliberate design. Imagine it upright, towering above the landscape like a Neolithic sentinel, its shadow stretching across fields, its presence commanding attention, its sheer scale creating awe and reverence. What did it mean to those who raised it? Did it serve as a connection between earth and sky, the living and the dead, or humanity and the divine? The possibility that such a monument functioned on multiple levels, practical, ceremonial, astronomical, and symbolic, reflects a complexity that challenges assumptions about prehistoric thought and capability. The alignment of the menhir with other nearby monuments adds yet another layer of intrigue. Scholars have observed that the long menhir's orientation, relative to surrounding structures, could correspond to the path of the sun, prominent lunar positions, or even topographical features like hills and valleys. Could these alignments have served calendrical functions, aiding in agricultural timing or seasonal ritual? Or were they symbolic markers, meant to convey social cohesion, religious belief, or territorial authority? And if the Neolithic builders possessed such awareness, how did they integrate observation, measurement, and practical construction techniques to achieve both accuracy and stability? Technically, the Grand Menhir base also raises questions about knowledge of load distribution, material properties, and structural planning. Granite is notoriously hard and difficult to shape, yet the Neolithic builders created a foundation capable of supporting a colossal weight for centuries. How much of this knowledge was empirical, derived from generations of trial and error, and how much was conceptual, informed by a sense of proportion, geometry, and observation of natural forces? Were the builders aware of the stresses and balances involved in erecting a vertical monolith, or did they rely on intuition and communal skill honed over decades? Walking along the base today, it is impossible not to feel the presence of past human endeavor. Each chisel mark, each smoothed surface, and each fractured edge evokes hands, vision, and purpose from over 6 millennia ago. The site invites reflection on mortality, ritual, and the relationship between humans and monumental space. How many hands worked together to shape, transport, and install this stone? How many generations witnessed its erection, its ceremonial use, and its eventual fall? And how much of the knowledge, symbolism, and intent has been lost to time, leaving only the pink granite base as a silent testament? Speculative interpretations continue to captivate researchers and enthusiasts alike. Some suggest the menhir was part of an enormous astronomical observatory. Others see it as a territorial marker of power or a ceremonial axis connecting sacred sites across the landscape. Could it have served multiple functions simultaneously, combining ritual, observation, and social symbolism into a single monumental structure? And if so, what does this imply about the cognitive and organizational capabilities of Neolithic societies? Capabilities that allowed them to conceive, plan, and partially execute constructions that modern engineers still struggle to replicate? The grand menhir base of Locmariaquer remains both tangible and elusive, a physical anchor to a vanished world, yet a source of enduring mystery. Its scale, precision, and placement invite awe, curiosity, and speculation. It challenges modern understanding of prehistoric construction, social organization, and ritual practice, raising questions about what humans can achieve when vision, labor, and cultural purpose converge. Even broken, weathered, and partially buried, the base commands attention. It asks observers to consider not just the stone itself, but the knowledge, coordination, and intention required to shape it, move it, and raise it against the forces of nature. As the wind sweeps across the Breton Plateau, whispering through grass and over the fractured stone, one cannot help but wonder, what did the grand menhir represent to those who first raised it? What ceremonies, knowledge, and beliefs were encoded in its placement and orientation? And what secrets, perhaps lost forever, remain hidden within the granite, waiting for patient eyes and minds to discern them? In this way, the grand menhir base stands as a silent challenge to our understanding, a monument to human ambition, and an enduring mystery that continues to echo across the centuries. From the windswept plains of Brittany, where the colossal grand menhir base rises as a testament to Neolithic ambition and monumental engineering, our journey now turns to the rugged landscapes of Sardinia, an island steeped in enigmatic history and prehistoric marvels. Scattered across hillsides and valleys lie the giants' graves, minor sites, numerous yet understated megalithic tombs, whose long, narrow chambers and massive stone constructions whisper of ancient rituals, social cohesion, and a culture whose capabilities continue to challenge modern understanding. Though they lack the scale of the larger necropolises, these minor sites are no less captivating, each a carefully crafted intersection of life, death, and monumentality. At first sight, a Sardinian giant's grave appears deceptively simple, a stone alignment forming an elongated chamber, often capped with horizontal slabs, flanked by smaller standing stones, and sometimes framed by a semicircular arrangement resembling a forecourt. Yet as one moves closer, the precision of construction becomes evident. Each block is carefully selected, shaped, and positioned to endure centuries of erosion, frost, and seismic shifts. How did communities without iron tools, pulleys, or formal engineering training manage to quarry, transport, and assemble these stones with such reliability? What techniques, knowledge, or organizational systems allowed for the creation of hundreds of similar tombs across Sardinia's rugged terrain? These minor tombs, though smaller than Sardinia's more famous giants' graves like Coduvecchio or Limuri, share fundamental architectural principles. The long, rectangular chamber, sometimes accessed through a narrow corridor, served as a collective burial space, often accompanied by ritual deposits of pottery, ornaments, or tools. The forecourt, in many instances, forms a semicircular arrangement of standing stones that frames the tomb's entrance, suggesting ritual activity or a ceremonial stage. Could this configuration have been intended to amplify spiritual energy, to guide participants through specific sequences of movement and observation, or to align the living with cosmic forces? Dating the minor giants' graves proves challenging. Archaeological estimates place them roughly between 1800 and 1500 BCE, within the Bronze Age Nuragic culture of Sardinia. This society is already known for the Nuragi towers, monumental stone structures scattered across the island, demonstrating advanced social organization, architectural knowledge, and engineering skill. Yet the minor tombs add another dimension. A mortuary landscape integrated with ritual, geometry, and symbolism. Were these tombs primarily functional burial sites, or did their placement, alignment, and construction encode deeper cosmological, cultural, or spiritual knowledge? The construction of these tombs is particularly intriguing. Large stone blocks were extracted from nearby quarries, sometimes transported across considerable distances. Horizontal capstones, weighing multiple tons, were elevated and positioned with apparent precision, forming a durable chamber for collective interment. Was this achieved solely through brute force, levers, and ingenuity, or did these communities possess subtle techniques lost to modern observation? Could the repetitive design of these tombs across multiple minor sites reflect a standardized ritual code, a shared technical knowledge, or even a proto-architectural tradition transmitted orally over generations? Orientation and alignment add yet another layer of mystery. Many minor giants' graves are positioned in relation to prominent natural features, hills, valleys, or streams, and some appear to correspond with solar or lunar paths. Could the entrance face the rising sun at specific times of year, linking burial practice to agricultural cycles or celestial observation? Were the semicircular forecourts intentionally aligned to cast shadows that marked ritual moments, or to amplify the experience of those participating in ceremonial acts? These subtle choices suggest that the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of both landscape and astronomy, integrating practical, symbolic, and ritual concerns into the design of each site. Social organization is evident in the scale and repetition of the tombs. Constructing even a minor giant's grave required coordinated labor, logistical planning, and skilled oversight. How did these Bronze Age communities mobilize and sustain effort for monuments that would endure centuries? Was there a centralized leadership, or did multiple clans or villages contribute according to shared cultural knowledge and practice? How was expertise in stone selection, shaping, and placement transmitted across generations, particularly in an oral society without formal written records? Artifacts recovered from minor sites add nuance to the mystery. Pottery shards, bronze implements, and personal ornaments indicate both burial practice and daily life. Some tombs reveal subtle variation in internal structure or decoration, hinting at status differentiation or ritual specialization. Did these minor graves serve the wider community, the elite, or specific social groups? And how much of their significance lies hidden in forms, placement, and landscape context, rather than in the few tangible objects that survive? The interaction between the tombs and the natural landscape cannot be overlooked. Sardinia's hills, rocky outcrops, and valleys are integrated into each site's orientation, access, and visual prominence. The tombs were not randomly placed. They engaged the terrain, creating a dialogue between stone, space, and environment. Could these choices have been designed to evoke awe, reinforce social cohesion, or create sacred pathways connecting the living and the dead? Were the minor tombs intended to be seen from a distance, signaling territorial control or spiritual presence, or were they primarily intimate spaces for communal ceremony and reflection? Even the smaller monuments provoke speculation about ritual and cosmology. The semicircular forecourts, narrow corridors, and elongated chambers may have guided movement and perception, framing the experience of participants and creating temporal and spatial sequences during ritual. Could these tombs encode knowledge of lunar cycles, solar events, or seasonal changes, linking burial practice to the rhythms of the natural world? If so, what observational techniques or symbolic frameworks allowed Bronze Age Sardinians to translate celestial patterns into enduring architecture? Walking among the minor giants' graves today, one senses both scale and subtlety. The stones, weathered by millennia of wind and rain, convey permanence, skill, and intention. The chambers, narrow but resolute, hint at human care, ritual attention, and the integration of social, spiritual, and technical knowledge. Each grave invites questions about the people who built it, their beliefs, their labor, and their perception of life, death, and the cosmos. How much knowledge has been preserved in the layout, form, and orientation of these structures, and how much remains lost beneath centuries of soil and vegetation? Speculation extends to connections across sites. Minor giants' graves are often positioned near larger necropolises or Nuragic towers, suggesting an integrated cultural landscape in which mortuary, ceremonial, and defensive structures were interrelated. Could the tombs have served as satellite sites, reinforcing communal memory, spiritual practice, or social hierarchy? Did their standardized design reflect a shared architectural and ritual vocabulary, or were variations meaningful, encoding local identity, lineage, or celestial knowledge? And if some knowledge was encoded in subtle architectural gestures, how much of it remains invisible to modern investigation? The giants' graves, minor sites, underscore the ingenuity and spiritual sophistication of Bronze Age Sardinians. Though modest in scale compared to monumental necropolises, they reveal mastery of stone, landscape, and symbolic space. They embody collective labor, ritual intent, and perhaps even astronomical awareness, yet their precise meaning eludes modern understanding. Each long chamber, each capstone, and each semicircular forecourt hints at knowledge of the cosmos, social cohesion, and ancestral memory. But how much of that knowledge was preserved, and how much has been lost over millennia? As the sun dips low over Sardinia's rolling hills, casting shadows that accentuate the elongated chambers and standing stones, the minor giants' graves stand in quiet testament to human effort, ritual, and imagination. Their presence evokes both familiarity and mystery, offering glimpses of past belief, skill, and organization while withholding full explanation. Each site whispers questions across time. How did these communities achieve such enduring construction? What ceremonies, observations, and social practices were encoded in stone? And what secrets, perhaps forever hidden, remain buried within the subtle geometry and placement of these enigmatic tombs, waiting for patient minds to uncover their stories? From the sun-drenched hills and enduring megaliths of Sardinia, where minor giants' graves quietly testify to Bronze Age ingenuity and ritual practice, our exploration now carries us north across the Channel to the chalk plains of Wiltshire, England. Here, amidst gently rolling fields, lies Avebury, one of the most enigmatic and expansive megalithic complexes in Europe, a site where stone circles, avenues, and henges converge to create a landscape steeped in mystery, ritual, and architectural sophistication that continues to defy full understanding. Walking across the site, one cannot help but feel the weight of human endeavor, the resonance of ancient ceremony, and the silent testimony of structures that have endured for over 5 millennia. Avebury's most striking feature is its massive stone circle, which encloses an area more than 300 meters in diameter, the largest prehistoric stone circle in the world. Surrounding it is a wide henge, a ditch and bank sculpted with careful labor, whose scale suggests not only monumental effort, but social organization on a grand scale. The stones themselves vary in size, some towering over 6 meters, others smaller yet equally deliberate in placement. Each stone appears both solitary and interdependent, forming a web of geometric relationships that hint at purpose beyond mere decoration or functional utility. How did Neolithic communities quarry, transport, and erect these massive blocks with precision, often over considerable distances, without metal tools or modern engineering knowledge? And why was so much effort invested in creating patterns that span entire fields and undulating terrain? Approaching the stones, the careful alignment becomes evident. Certain stones seem positioned in relation to natural landmarks, nearby rivers, or celestial events. Could these alignments correspond to solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles, encoding astronomical knowledge into the very layout of the landscape? Or might they serve as ritual pathways, guiding movement, attention, and experience during ceremonies? The sheer size of the circle, the complexity of its internal arrangements, and the precision of some alignments suggest that its builders possessed observational and planning capabilities that rival later civilizations, yet they left no written records to explain their intentions. Within the henge, multiple avenues extend outward, flanked by paired standing stones that guide sight lines across the landscape. These avenues appear carefully designed to create movement and perception, suggesting that visitors or participants in rituals were led through sequences of space and stone, experiencing light, shadow, and monumentality in deliberate progression. Were these avenues ceremonial processional routes, or did they encode symbolic relationships between stones, landscape features, and the cosmos? And if such knowledge was intentionally preserved and transmitted, how did prehistoric communities accomplish this across generations without writing or formal architectural plans? Excavations at Avebury have revealed a wealth of artifacts, pottery fragments, flint tools, and remnants of ceremonial activity. Yet, much about the site resists interpretation. Unlike other megalithic complexes, Avebury appears not to be a tomb in the conventional sense, nor solely an observatory. Its purpose may have encompassed multiple functions: ceremonial, territorial, cosmological, and communal. Could the massive stones themselves, positioned across the plains, have acted as mnemonic devices, encoding stories, genealogies, or spiritual principles in their arrangement? And if so, what methods did Neolithic people use to ensure fidelity of knowledge over centuries? The sheer logistics of construction further deepen the mystery. Many of the stones used in Avebury were transported from local outcrops, yet some originated several kilometers away, requiring coordinated labor, lifting techniques, and planning. Without metal chisels or cranes, the Neolithic builders relied on ingenuity, teamwork, and empirical understanding of weight, leverage, and stability. But how exactly was such monumental work accomplished? Were simple levers, sledges, and rolling logs sufficient, or might there have been specialized knowledge now lost to time? Methods transmitted orally or through hands-on apprenticeship that modern observers can only speculate about? Avebury's relationship with the surrounding landscape reinforces the sense of deliberate design. Hills, streams, and vistas appear integrated into the site's orientation and visual impact. Certain stones frame distant topography. Others align along axes that may correspond with sunrise or sunset points on specific days of the year. Could the placement of stones have served to harmonize human activity with natural cycles, to synchronize rituals with the sun, moon, and stars, or to create a sacred geography that reinforced social cohesion and spiritual understanding? The integration of natural and constructed elements suggests a culture deeply attuned to environment, perception, and cosmology. Despite centuries of excavation and study, many features of Avebury remain enigmatic. The inner arrangements of stones, variations in height and spacing, and the complex interweaving of henge, circle, and avenues continue to defy straightforward explanation. Some researchers propose that the site functioned as a multi-generational ritual center, a sacred landscape for initiation, worship, and communal gathering. Others suggest that it was designed as an astronomical calendar, or even a symbolic microcosm of the known world. Could it have fulfilled all these roles simultaneously, merging technical knowledge, spiritual understanding, and social organization into a single, monumental expression? The human experience of Avebury is immediate and immersive. Walking within the stone circle, one senses scale, proportion, and rhythm. Shadows fall along the standing stones, wind whistles through gaps, and distant hills frame the horizon. The landscape itself seems alive, responsive, and deliberate, suggesting that the site was conceived not merely as an assembly of stones, but as an environment in which ritual, observation, and human perception intersected. How did prehistoric builders anticipate the interplay of light, shadow, and movement, and how much of their design relied on lived experience rather than abstract calculation? Speculation extends to potential symbolic or spiritual meanings. Some scholars posit that the stones represent ancestors, deities, or cosmic forces. Others argue they encode social memory or territorial markers. The avenues may have guided ritual processions, the henge may have delineated sacred space, and the circle itself may have embodied cosmological principles. Yet, with no written record, all interpretations remain tentative. Could the stones themselves have served as teaching tools, encoding knowledge about the environment, human society, or spiritual law? And if so, how much of this wisdom is irretrievably lost, leaving only the enduring monument as a guide to past understanding? Avebury also challenges modern engineering comprehension. Lifting, placing, and aligning stones of such size without cranes, ropes of metal, or formal surveying tools represents a feat still admired by contemporary engineers. How did communities coordinate labor, solve logistical challenges, and maintain consistent geometric relationships across the entire site? And how were such skills transmitted across generations to maintain coherence and stability over centuries? The site's continued presence on the Wiltshire landscape offers both awe and reflection. The stones are timeless witnesses to human ambition, creativity, and ritual consciousness. They suggest a society capable of extraordinary observation, technical skill, and spiritual imagination, yet they withhold precise knowledge of intention, ceremony, and meaning. Walking through the avenues, across the henge, and within the circle, one is reminded of the delicate balance between permanence and mystery. The Neolithic builders left a landscape that endures physically, but resists full comprehension. As the sun sets over the chalk hills, casting long shadows that accentuate the curves of the henge and the heights of the stones, Avebury stands in quiet grandeur. It is a place of labor, ritual, observation, and perhaps even cosmological insight, a multidimensional landscape that bridges the practical and the symbolic. And yet, for all its scale and sophistication, questions remain. Why was it built with such precision and ambition? What ceremonies unfolded within its stones, avenues, and enclosures? How did its creators perceive the interplay of sky, landscape, and human activity? And most importantly, what knowledge, ritual, or intention lies hidden in plain sight, waiting for the patient observer to discern it? Avebury, like so many other prehistoric monuments, challenges us to consider the depth, complexity, and ingenuity of societies long past, inviting reflection on what remains hidden behind the enduring stones of human endeavor. From the orderly lines of granite at Karnak, stretching across the Breton plains and testifying to prehistoric ambition, precision, and ritual, our journey now moves thousands of kilometers east into the stark deserts and rocky expanses of northern Arabia, where an altogether different kind of monument silently endures, the Mustatil Structures. Unlike the vertical grandeur of European stone circles or the elongated alignment of the Karnak rows, Mustatils are monumental yet understated, consisting of rectangular enclosures defined by low stone walls that stretch for hundreds of meters. Viewed from above, they appear as precise geometric forms etched into the desert landscape, their scale and repetition hinting at the labor, planning, and social cohesion required to build them, while their purpose remains shrouded in mystery. At first glance, a mustatil might seem deceptively simple, a rectangular platform bounded by parallel walls, sometimes interrupted by an entrance or projecting terminal structure, enclosing an interior often devoid of visible construction or habitation. Yet this simplicity belies the complexity required to construct such forms with consistency across the harsh, arid terrain. Some mustatils extend more than 600 meters, their walls carefully placed with an attention to straightness and proportion that challenges the assumption that ancient communities were limited to small-scale, functional constructions. How did Neolithic builders achieve such precision over distances that would be demanding even for modern surveyors? What tools, techniques, or methods allowed them to maintain alignment across rough desert ground, where minor deviations would compound over hundreds of meters? Dating of these enigmatic structures places them roughly in the 5th to 6th millennium BCE, during the Neolithic, a period when humans across the Arabian Peninsula were transitioning from mobile hunter-gatherer lifestyles to more settled or semi-sedentary communities. Yet the mustatils themselves reveal little about daily life. No evidence of permanent habitation, storage pits, or domestic activity has been found within the enclosures. Could their primary function have been ceremonial or symbolic rather than practical? And if so, what kinds of rituals or communal acts might have justified the enormous labor required to move thousands of stones, arrange them precisely, and construct these monumental rectangles in a barren landscape? The architectural uniformity across multiple mustatil sites is striking. Despite their dispersal across hundreds of kilometers, these structures maintain consistent proportions and geometric principles. This suggests shared knowledge, communication, or cultural continuity among dispersed communities. Did builders follow an established ritual blueprint passed down orally or through apprenticeship? Were these enclosures the product of a centralized authority, a collective decision-making process, or a shared cosmology that linked disparate groups across a harsh desert environment? And if so, what symbolic or spiritual principles guided their construction, allowing precision and repetition to persist over generations? The placement of mustatils within the landscape deepens the mystery. Many are positioned on elevated plateaus, overlooking valleys, wadis, or other natural landmarks, suggesting deliberate integration with the terrain. Some appear aligned with distant features on the horizon, while others cluster in groups, forming extended ceremonial landscapes. Could the builders have intended these enclosures to interact visually or ritually with the surrounding environment? Were they marking territorial boundaries, spiritual nodes, or sites of seasonal observation? And how might the scale of labor required, hundreds of people moving tons of stone in a pre-metal age, reflect the social, spiritual, or political significance these structures held? Excavations within some mustatil enclosures have revealed small concentrations of animal bones, often interpreted as remnants of ritual deposits. The animals, primarily cattle, were placed within the rectangular platform, suggesting sacrificial activity or offerings. Could these enclosures have functioned as ceremonial centers, linking the human and natural worlds through ritual acts, symbolically connecting community, livestock, and landscape? And if so, how might such practices inform our understanding of early Arabian social organization, spirituality, and collective memory? The geometry of mustatils also raises profound questions. Unlike the circular or curvilinear forms of European megaliths, the strict rectangularity of mustatils suggests an abstract conceptual framework, a deliberate translation of space into straight lines and right angles. What worldview would inspire such linear precision, and how was that knowledge codified and transmitted? Could these rectangles symbolize enclosure, containment, or separation, perhaps distinguishing the sacred from the mundane? Or might they function as physical metaphors for cosmological or seasonal cycles? The absence of inscriptions or other explanatory markers means that all interpretations must remain tentative. Yet the consistency of form implies intentionality, not randomness. Constructing mustatils would have required extraordinary coordination. Stones for the walls were often uncut or roughly shaped, yet their placement demanded careful planning, transport over uneven terrain, and sustained communal effort. How were resources marshaled and labor organized in a Neolithic society that likely lacked centralized hierarchies? Did the act of building itself serve as a communal ritual, reinforcing social cohesion, transmitting knowledge, or enacting spiritual obligations? And if so, what does this suggest about the relationship between architecture, labor, and belief in early Arabian communities? Beyond their physicality, the mustatils provoke reflection on human perception and experience. Standing at the end of a long rectangular wall, one feels the deliberate stretching of space, the linear progression of form, and the echo of countless steps taken by builders, ritual participants, or visitors over millennia. The enclosures are both monumental and intimate. Their walls guide perception, their proportions communicate scale, and their silent presence evokes awe and contemplation. Could the builders have understood and intentionally manipulated human perception in this way, creating landscapes that shaped both movement and thought? Comparisons with other megalithic traditions suggest both convergences and divergences. Like European stone circles, mustatils involve communal labor, geometric arrangement, and apparent ritual significance. Yet their rectilinear form, desert environment, and integration with sacrificial practices set them apart, hinting at a unique cultural response to local ecology and spiritual imagination. What factors, environmental, social, or spiritual, led to this distinct architectural expression, and what might this tell us about the diversity of Neolithic ingenuity across regions? The passage of time has weathered walls, scattered stones, and obscured many details, yet the underlying geometry and scale remain legible to the observer. Each mustatil is a silent monument to the capabilities of prehistoric communities, technical knowledge, social organization, and spiritual imagination all encoded in the landscape. How did these early builders envision the structures in their entirety? How much symbolic meaning, ritual procedure, or cosmological knowledge has been lost beneath millennia of sand and stone? And what remains hidden, awaiting discovery through patient observation, careful excavation, or perhaps even insight that bridges past and present understanding? As the desert sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the low walls and projecting towers of mustatils, one cannot help but feel the presence of human intention, effort, and belief stretching across the centuries. These rectangular monuments, austere yet monumental, remind us that prehistoric communities possessed not only the technical skill to manipulate stone at scale, but the vision to imbue that work with cultural, social, and spiritual significance. And yet, for all the clues they offer, the mustatils continue to guard their secrets. Why were these structures built with such consistent geometric rigor? What rituals unfolded within or around their walls? How did the builders perceive their relationship to the landscape, the heavens, and the unseen forces they may have honored? The Mustatil structures, in their linearity and silent desert expanse, challenge us to consider the depth of human creativity, the endurance of social knowledge, and the mysteries that endure when monumental labor intersects with unseen purpose. Each rectangle, wall, and terminal tower speaks of intention, yet remains undeciphered, a testament to the imagination, skill, and spiritual complexity of communities whose voices echo faintly through the stones of time, leaving questions as enduring as the structures themselves.